Lights, camera, action.
Mhm. It reminded me of what, but it's been hard and slow today.
That's just like
Yesterday, the network.
The presentation from
My
Tuesday's
computer's shut
budget
down
meeting
twice.
says I'm gonna do-
Okay, we're good to go.
Okay, call to order Finance Committee meeting Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. This is an open session, public meeting, subject to being recorded. Your image and voice will be recorded. What's on our agenda?
I'd probably do the minutes first.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from last week?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from last week's FinCom meeting.
I'll second that. Oh, that's okay.
All right. Who seconded that? Any discussion? Good, okay, all in favor?
I
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Typing.
It's a dramatic pause.
Apologies.
Multitasking is not easy in public session. And,
No, it's not.
run the minutes, some of us do it all the time. And the next thing on the agenda is see what Kristen has for us. Does that sound right, Scott?
Yes, that is it.
Okay,
All right, I thought we would, make this brighter. We've had all of our presentations. We have our final assessment letter from Assabet as we went through, at the meeting last week. And Berlin Boylston will be voting on their budget on March 11th.
would like to share.
I would so much. Hold on, please. Yes, thank you for reminding me. So what I did was I did a couple of little tweaks to the budget. I'm just gonna share so everybody can see. These are also, this version of the budget is in the drive if you want to look at it on your individual computers or from afar.
say, Kristen, as you're getting into this, a question came up at the school committee budget subcommittee meeting. I think it was Al Ganem. Is this out on the website for the town, or is it just, is this internal at this point?
Nope, out on the town's website, and actually I'll show folks, where they can go. If that's helpful. Let's see. Oh, it's not switching screens on me. Of course it wouldn't. Hold on. I'll show everyone how to get to the budget page.
Is it My Town Government versus the website, or is it?
No, it's on the Town of Berlin's website,
Okay.
which is townofberlin.com.
Okay.
There we go. And if you go to the middle of the page where you see the blue buttons, there is one right down here in the middle that says FY26 budget overview.
Okay,
Click on that, and then I reorganized the page a little bit. So it kind of gives a summary at the top of where we're at in the economic climate, et cetera, what the directives were to the town departments in building the budget. And then there are links to documents about the budget process, links to Assabet Valley's website and the preliminary and final budget that they have provided us with, as well as links to Berlin Boylston's website and the two versions of the budget that we have received from them to date.
okay.
And finally, the two draft versions of the town's budget. And so that would be last week's, the 26th, and the week before, the 20th. And then tonight we'll get that up there tomorrow after we discuss it.
All right. So if anything in our meeting goes too fast for people, they can go into the website, pick up the documents and study them.
Absolutely. And we tried to make it really easy to find. Just click on the button from the homepage. It'll bring you right here, and all the documents are blue links. Just click on them. They open in Adobe PDF. All right, I think I have to stop sharing on this screen and go back to my budget screen. So give me
Okay.
1 second. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stone.
okay.
That's. you.
Absolutely.
There
Oh,
we
you
go.
got your color book out.
You get flowers for Administrative Assistance Day.
It's not till April, right?
No.
So just a quick recap of what we discussed at the end of the last budget meeting, because it was late. If any of you were, avoiding my punchiness, and I apologize for that, but we estimate having about $577,913 in new funds. That consists of new growth estimate as well as the 2.5 allowed under Prop 2.5. So roughly half of that amount would be just under $289,000. And the school budget and town budgets are about 50-50. The school budget is a little bit more than half, but they're relatively close. So I have gone, as we talked about last time, and put together the town administrator recommended budget. And I have reduced the requested town budget amounts from $346,361 down to $246,195. So that's a reduction of just over $100,000. And that puts us well below the threshold of utilizing half of that new revenue, which is $288,957. Because I'm a little neurotic, I have to fix this. Give me a second so that you can see that that's a dollar amount. All right. So then we have the final assessment letter that we've received from Assabet. That is a $163,965 increase, and it is due to 7 new students that are coming in, as well as an increase in minimum local contribution from the state. And as we've talked about, the amount that the state can increase minimum local contribution does not keep pace with Prop 2.5, which we're limited by outside of our excess levy capacity. So this year it was a little over 5%, but yet we can only go 2.5. So the state has sort of created this inherent problem that we're going to be facing every year unless we have significant new growth, which is our other factor that raises those new funds for the town. And in small communities like ours, we are just not seeing significant new growth, particularly in this current economy. So with all of that in mind, anyone have questions on that brief overview?
So when you were talking numbers, you were talking about which columns, like are we in CT? Where's the columns that we were just talking about?
Right here.
Okay.
So that is with the budget that I'm recommending.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Those would be the increases. Berlin-Boylston right now, again, I don't have the final capital number, so I do have the whole capital request in there, which is almost 1.4 million. So I want to put that caveat out there. And that really is an estimate at this point. March 11th, we'll have the numbers, and then we'll be able to actually see what the deficit is that we have after that. So we do certainly have enough funding to cover the town increase as well as the Assabet increase. Those two alone total $410,160. And we're estimating we have, as I said, $577,913 in new funds. So really what that means is there's about 500, there's about $167,000 in funding remaining before we start to tap into excess levy capacity, and we have to increase taxes beyond 2.5%. And just to give everybody a reminder of our excess levy, that's down here. Our total excess levy capacity right now is $1,247,675. As of the budget 2 version of for Berlin-Boylston, the operating increase alone, just leaving out capital and debt, was $1,186,172. So we are within the levy for just operating, But once we have the capital amount, that will push us over. Obviously, we do use free cash for capital, but we're not going to have 1.4 million in free cash available. And we're getting very close to having those numbers. I figured I'd throw that out there now while we're talking about free cash. We do not have them yet. Hoping to have them next week, I can actually say. So knock on wood.
Super. Yeah.
So we're getting very close there.
So, just to stay focused, so
Sure.
in column CT, the Berlin Boylston School increase at 2.9.
That includes the capital,
That
the full
includes-
capital right now.
Yeah, just that one line. And then on the lower left, we're in column CL. That's without capital. Berlin Boylston School District operating increase.
Correct. So these were the numbers that we did at the end of last week's
Sure.
FinCom meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe what you should do is split up on column CS line 234 into BBRSD capital and BBRSD operating.
I think that's a great idea. Let me just. Yep, and then we can move it in and out. So where are we at? The operating is here.
That's the school proposal we saw in February.
Yeah.
Version 2.
And then the capital, I suppose we should probably put the debt. I mean, the debt kind of isn't capital, it's its own
Yeah, it's kind of.
line item, so that should probably be broken out as well if we're
Well, yeah,
doing this accurately.
It helps with clarity as you think about it,
agreed. So let me just put that in there.
because the debt's paid. I mean, that comes first, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is debts. So this number we have, that is this. And then the capital would be, we don't know. So,
And that's in contrast to Assabet. Because their capital and their debt services is all folded in. Is that correct?
they do break it out.
Yes, but it's folded into that number.
But
we
it's
look at.
all folded into that 163
Right.
number right now.
Yeah.
Yep. Only, and I think it makes sense to leave it like that since we did get the assessment letter already. That is the final voted
Oh.
amount and it's all
Yeah.
rolled in. I mean, we can break it out if we like.
I just
but-
thought I'd mention it for people who didn't know that.
No, that makes perfect sense.
And the other thing too, as far as the Berlin Boylston School for debt, that's also because we have that as a capital, as a debt exclusion. Also, so for us, we do need that number separate for a recap.
Yes, that is very true.
It can still be
So-
all part of the whole thing, but we still need that number to
Oh.
record.
Yeah,
So brought
remember
in as
here,
debt ex-
we're looking at only the increases on those numbers. You have the increase on BBRSD operating. You just want the increase of the BBRSD debt. You took the whole number.
Oh, I'm sorry. You are 100% correct. Thank you. Occupational hazard of doing numbers on the fly. That would be this number. And then this would be. That's where we land. Yep, and that number, the total increase matches this number up here, which is the total dollar amount change. So we match, which is great. I just get a little nervous doing the numbers on the fly, so when it matches, that's good.
Fair enough.
So,
Well,
One
Brian,
number
I
I
want-
think that's really reflective. You could scroll up just a tiny bit to get all of the last section, the 900 sections there. Just scroll up just a tiny bit more. Okay, yeah. Right there, just from the town, of our increase of 246,195, Worcester Regional Retirement and Chapter 32 Health Insurance account for $152,000 of that.
Exactly. Worcester
Which
Regional's
is-
going up 83,000 and health insurance is going up just 70,500. So yeah.
Right.
It's
And the
huge.
rest of town government is 94,000. I don't know if there's, I don't recall, is there another number that sticks out that's big in the rest of town government?
The only other number that would be large would be the contractual obligation for the police salaries.
Yeah, and how much was the police increase?
That, let me go up. Sorry for the scrolling and
Which is actually greater than what we had there because you have made cuts in other areas.
Exactly. I also I moved funding. So what I recommended doing, it is $180,650. However, what I did was I took the $45,000 that we had essentially parked in that HR line item that we put there as part of union negotiations to offset this amount. So that amount is lower, and then the other reductions we made, as you mentioned, Scott, in other line items offsets that as well. So those are where your three major increase areas are, and those are either all contractual or non-discretionary. We really don't have a choice. Those are obligations.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to just take the notes down here because I think this will be what we want to include in our report.
Yep.
And these are the highlights of
meeting.
it. So it's 180K increase in police. You help
Yep,
offset
186.
it by 45K from the HR line item. That
was really
there
put there for that purpose.
for because you knew contract negotiations were happening.
And just for a little bit of additional explanation on that, as you heard, but it's been a while since the police department was here. This was part of a commitment to fully fund educational incentives and to bring our rates up to be on the low end of competitive with our adjacent and comparable sized communities. And I can tell you right now, police departments are giving signing bonuses, and we really, the select board, I believe, made the right choice and the right commitment to retain our officers and hopefully be able to attract and continue to retain those folks because they do a fantastic job.
Sir, the visuals, Kristen, can you collapse the ribbons so you get a little more real estate up there?
Yes.
That way we can see a few more rows of numbers if it makes it
Yep.
get more in the view. Thank you.
So and you'll see when general government there, it actually went down by 6%. Really, when you talk about places that we looked at very closely in some of those razor thin areas, which I actually heard from a resident this week that the razor thin makes them nervous and it may make other residents nervous. They would rather not see the town deplete the reserve fund and cut things so tight. So just so you know, I did receive a call and that was one perspective on it. So, but basically, other than that, the recommended changes I made remain the same. We still have the outstanding variables of town administrator salary, police chief salary, and fire chief salary. My contract is going to the select board Monday evening. The chiefs are going on the 17th of March. I don't believe that will be the last time the chiefs go though. So we may have to do a bit of estimation there. We'll do the best that we can. And then the only other thing I looked into at the request of the FinCom was the town report and Powder House News line item, which I think I just scrolled by, sorry. I looked into what the cost was to continue to do the Powder House News in the way that we're doing it and cost for the annual town report with a little bit of inflation added to it. And it looks like we can do the annual town report for $1,500 and the Powder House News for $3,500. It's a little bit under $300 a month. So I would feel comfortable cutting that budget down from 10,000 to 5,000. I believe in the last version of the budget, I had cut it down to 2,500 and I was eliminating the Powder House News. But in going back and looking at the cost for the town report, we actually spent a little over $1,100 for the town report. I do have to say printing costs are escalating. So I wouldn't feel comfortable cutting that any closer than 1,500. But if we want to keep the Powder House News in its current format, which is virtual mailed to those who request it, as well as dropping it off, I can tell you, we put it in the lobby. They're all gone already. They were gone yesterday. I had somebody, I actually like to think on a personal, it's because Cameo was on the cover,
I
my
think
pup.
so.
I like to think she stole the show and everyone grabbed a newspaper, but
We call that dog appeal.
dog appeal,
That's
yes, very dog appeal. And people are invited to come meet her. And I already had 2 people stop by to come and meet her earlier this week. So anyhow, not the reason to keep the Powder House News, but this edition did go flying off the shelves. So that is the only other change that I made. And so I increased that budget back up by $2,500 to be able to keep the Powder House News.
Good work.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Excuse me.
So would you like to, I guess my question to you all is, where would you like to start? There are some line items that the select board did approve at their meeting last week. They started at the bottom, which I think actually made sense because a lot of our 900 line items are fixed costs. And they did take votes to affirm all of the miscellaneous benefits and insurance with the exception of health insurance. I did ask them to hold on those numbers. We did have a meeting with our Maya representative yesterday. It is a 12.1% increase in health insurance and a 7.05% increase in dental. I have backed these numbers down slightly because we typically leave spots for additional people to come in. And that was 3 single spots and 3 family spots. And I've backed that down to 2 single spots and 2 family spots, which resulted in that savings of almost $44,000 that you see there. So I am comfortable now moving forward with that $900,000 number. It is still a $70,000 increase, but it was another $44,000 more than that before. So I don't know if you'd like to discuss the 900 column and possibly take some votes on that. I don't know how you want to proceed.
I'm wondering if we want to just get the hard part out of the way first tonight, because considering these schools are having their vote on next Tuesday, and I think it would be prudent to have a recommendation in terms of the school budget to be able to give to them so they have an idea of where we stand.
Okay.
That's at least my opinion. I'll open that up to the other members about getting a number to them.
Well, Scott, the brains are usually clearer earlier, so we could do the simple stuff later, I suppose.
Yeah, that's what I figured. We do
Non-controversial
this.
sorts of things.
Yeah, the simple stuff, and then we hopefully don't get hung up on things that are too much.
So I'll say one more thing and then I'll stop talking. If we do, and I'm just trying to think of the nice place I can put it over here with words. New funds are gonna be 577,913. Town increase, at least at this time, is the 246,197 in my recommended budget. The Assabet increase, sorry, spelling's important too, not just math. Is 163,965. So if you just want to go on what you would technically have remaining, I didn't get that right at all. Let's try that again. Oh, hit escape and undo. Yeah, it's not going, oh, there it is. Okay, I liked that formula better. So you technically have 167,753 in remaining funds if you subtract out the town and Assabet. And I don't know that you necessarily want to do it that way, but I just wanted to give you that breakout, and now I'll be quiet. Yeah, I do have to fix that. I do have to fix this. It will drive me
I
nuts.
knew she'd go ahead.
Gives you time to think, huh? It's all right.
And just for reference, if anyone wants, and I think we mentioned this at the last meeting, it was just over, just, it was 850,000 and change. Mary, I think I gave you that number. I don't know if you have it handy.
When we
The
spoke on
increase for
Tuesday.
last year. Yeah,
You said it was 832,000 and change.
there we go. So that was the increase, and that was capital, debt, and operating. And if anyone wants to know what just the operating increase was for last year, I can get that for you guys too. And we can all talk while I look for that.
Right, so I just can ask a question. I know I joined the meeting kind of like halfway into it yesterday, the budget meeting. I saw Mary, you were at the meeting. So did they have some slightly new numbers, but it looks like it wasn't very much from February 12th.
Yeah, Scott, I'm not sure. I had to do some other things today, so I didn't take a deep dive into the presentation we were given yesterday and the version 2 from our February 11 meeting with the district.
Yeah.
But I have the both of them in front of me. Maybe I can see if it's, no, there's too many numbers here. I can't do it on the fly.
I watched the meeting as well.
Okay. So
Um,
go ahead, Cliff.
Scott, could you repeat your question? I don't want to
So,
respond
right, so
inappropriately.
we were looking at the operating dollar amount increases, for Tohoto and Berlin Memorial. And the question was, since the meeting on February 12th, basically being the meeting that was between February 12th and the material they had yesterday, it looks like, was there any change or in the operating costs?
Minute there. Scott, because
It looks like there was a slight change. So the number, Kristen, that you put in, you have showing it's 100 and I forget, 1,100,000. Can we go down a little bit to our scratch area at the bottom? So the operating, you have it 1,186,172. Previously, unless I had a mistake, after the February 12th meeting, I had it 1,177,172. So it looks like they shows an increase of 9,000.
Scott, I'm lost, so hang on a minute.
So
I
I have a note, but whether it's accurate or not, I can't really tell you. I was writing fast. They were talking about, this was towards the end of the meeting when they were summarizing, sort of, kind of. They said that the BMS, I have a BMS number, which I believe that's, I have a number and I want to make sure it's for both Tohoto and BMS. 8,376,875.
That's accurate. That's what was.
And
Yep.
which is an increase of 500, according to them, 575,000, which translates into a 7.3% increase over last year.
I didn't change the numbers at the bottom, Scott, if that's what you're asking. We had that 1.186 in there last week.
Okay, it was 1.186 from last week.
Yeah,
I
so
was
the
just
draft
looking-
budget reflects the February 11 numbers, version 2 of the school committee or the school district's budget.
So let me just check my numbers up here to make sure that they're correct. I have 4,993,452 for the Berlin Memorial Assessment, which that's correct per the 212 version. And then Berlin's is broken out for Tohoto into above minimum contribution and minimum local contribution. So that one, unless maybe I added that one incorrectly. Let's see. The Berlin is 191.
Junior on page 13 on this. Yeah.
Plus.
Yep.
2077768. 3,993,594. And when you add the two of those together, you get the 1,186,171.
Okay, yeah.
Bless you.
More or less my question was, because I know they had different, they had something presented there, but I didn't see anything emailed out. I just wanted to see if there was any significant change that they had done between February 12th, and it looks like there had not been any change in the dollar amounts.
I did not make any changes. What hold on.
So Scott, I have a presentation from yesterday,
Yes.
which Peg copied and handed out to people here. We don't have it electronically. So you don't have the benefit of looking at what's in our hands from the budget subcommittee yesterday, the school committee meeting.
Oh, it has gone down.
But if you look at the fiscal 26 proposed BMS assessment, it's
Could you give us the page number?
page 13.
It is
On the
lower.
bottom of page 13, there's a box that has the total Berlin operating assessments for fiscal year 2026. Okay,
Thank you.
yes, and now,
God, I'm gonna send you a picture.
yeah, if you look at the
I don't know if you can read it though.
middle column, you'll see the fiscal 25 is grayed out, and Aaron didn't have the numbers. He wanted that. He just took the total at the bottom. So if you look at the BMS assessment, in the version 2 budget, it was 4.93 million, 4,993,000. And then when you look at yesterday's number, it's 4,512,000 and change. So,
Okay, so that is a significantly lower number.
right, it's over 400. It's over 450,000 lower, huh?
Correct. So can we are these, is this the numbers then that they are, at least what they're proposing of what they're working
Well,
out, proposing to the school committee?
Scott, here's what I understood, that they're going to continue to work on numbers.
Yeah.
The district together with the school committee will continue to work on numbers. They spoke about posting something on Friday of this week and ahead of the March 11 school committee vote. So I think they're continuing to work on these numbers. I don't know that what we saw yesterday are considered final. And
Okay,
I also don't know, Scott, if you were listening to the conversation yesterday when Boylston's FinCom member, Karen, and I forget her last name, advised people that Boylston was, as they did last year, limiting the dollar increase for the school district to 500,000. Same thing as last, right? You got that, Scott?
correct.
Yeah.
I heard that. Yes.
You heard that, okay. And the other thing that she said is their new growth, they're estimating at 300,000. So, and I chimed in at that point that our estimate is 200,000 on new growth. And the other thing I said yesterday, because I was being pressed well, what would Berlin's number be if Boylston's number is 500,000? I said, well, we don't do the budget that way. And I was pressed again. So I said, okay, if you look at the regional school agreement and you do a thumbnail on the formulas in the agreement, it's basically driven by pupil enrollment at the three schools. And a little bit, there's Massachusetts Foundation budgeting in there. So it's kind of driven by the population, it's driven by the real estate values, the income, that sort of thing. But if you look at the two towns and what the regional agreement tells us to do, allocating between the two towns, basically Berlin has 2/3 of the students and basically 3/5 of the population. So we're a smaller component. And if Boylston's ceiling on this is 500,000, ours ought to be around 300,000, somewhere between 200,000 and 300,000 in additional dollars for fiscal 26 versus fiscal 25. So, but that, I said that's not an official opinion of the town. That's what I interpret from the regional agreement and what Boylston has to put into funding for the district.
Yeah, I mean, correct, because they're that 500,000, of course, what they're targeting is combination for Tohoto and Boylston Elementary. And I agree with your assessment of the numbers at Tohoto with the population. Unfortunately, the district agreement didn't apply those same formulas to BMS and at the elementary school level. So we're always going to be out of whack on that.
I understood, Scott, but the proportion is really the formula that focuses on Tohoto is driven that way, and then the two schools, their respective costs are what they are. And so we're projecting, I think it was 220 students at BMS next year. I think I saw that in a report mid-year or a end of year report, and then Boylston's elementary is again at around 330, working from memory. So, so you'd think that the cost would be pretty proportional. But again, I guess you'd have to look at the numbers, and the problem for everybody is the fiscal 25 numbers in the financial system still need a lot of cleanup, and therefore, to be able to say, oh, Berlin has just structurally higher costs in this and this and this area, or vice versa. It's really hard to say without having reliable numbers. And we did talk about a bit about the December 31, 2024 report of the district expenditures and where issues might have come up. The one thing that was clear is that the budgeted amounts don't reflect the historical and regional agreement allocation of 25, 25, 50, 25 to each of the elementary schools, 50 to the high school in terms of district-wide costs. So that what happens in the district office, those kinds of costs, those salaries, the legal and so on that fit into that category. So what was put into the financial system for fiscal 25, Tohoto, depending on how you calculate it, and it doesn't add up. There's obviously an internal problem with the allocation to the three schools, and then the total for district-wide that's done on the first page, they just don't add. But it looks like Tohoto High School was assessed 23% of those costs, not 50%. And then the remainder was divided between the elementary. So something's not right with those allocations in the fiscal 25 budget.
Where are you seeing that in the fiscal 25 budget? Or where are you getting those numbers, or how are they showing it to you?
So the financial director, Aaron Osborne, shared with us and shared with the school committee a report out of the financial system showing some high-level expense categories for fiscal 25. And so he showed the numbers as of December 31. We all got a copy of that. I believe it's in our Google Drive, budget drive for the finance committee here for this work. And when you look at the first column in that report is the budgeted numbers. The second column is expenditures. Third column is encumbrances, so on, and then there's two more columns. So
Do we have this thing? Can we share this number? Can we bring it up?
well, it's in our Google Drive. Scott, if you think we ought to pull it up, we could.
Yeah,
maybe
since you're
Kristen would
discussing
be
it,
kind
and
and do it.
it would be, I think it would be,
Which one is it?
I think if you go under schools, right, yes,
The version 2.
no,
Oh,
expenditures.
this one, yeah.
Expenditures. Oh, and then we have to rotate it, so.
Give me a second. I just
Be
got to
prepared
download
to
it
be-
so I can rotate it.
Prepared to be dizzy here for a minute.
Share my screen.
Scott, are you getting the image of the report?
yeah, just coming up. Can you hold on just a moment?
Oh, that's better, Kristen, thank God.
Hmm.
I want to make it even
Back.
better. How's that? Hold on.
Nice. You're the best. Okay, Scott, so we're looking at page 1 of 7 in this report,
Yes.
and the first column on the left is budget, so that would be the fiscal 25 budget. And it shows top level expense lines, right? Superintendent's office, that kind of thing. And then at the bottom, you see totals, district-wide expenses. So those are 1,355,700 and change. So those expenses are the ones that are spread over the 3 schools according to that traditional formula, and it matches what's in the district agreement, the regional district agreement, pretty closely. So it's spread 25% to each of the elementary schools and 50% to Tohoto. And then below you can see the total district costs and so on, right?
Right.
Now, I learned yesterday that what we see on December 31st of the year is for expenditures goes back to September 1st. It doesn't go back to July 1. Not sure what.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's what I heard yesterday. So in any event, if you see that total of 1.3 million, and then the next 6 pages, Scott, are all about the 3 schools. And Kristen, you might end up, oh, you don't have to rotate it. Fine. Okay. So if we look, about halfway down the page in capital letters, you see, well, you don't see it anymore.
Just kidding. I thought I was making it better, but apparently I'm making it worse.
You're good right there. Just hang on right there, Kristen. Yeah.
Okay.
So you see the all caps on the left, it says totals district-wide expenses. Yeah, okay, so in the budget, you see there's a number there. Somebody might want to write that down. There's a number 587, 173, right?
District-wide expenses, right? 587,
Yeah.
173.
And then if we page down a little bit, we'll see the Boylston Elementary number.
Sorry, 587, 173. Okay.
Yeah, that's still Berlin, so we want to go one more. Okay, Boylston, here we go. See the total district-wide expenses? And you'll notice that number is 581,853, 50 cents. So it's a very small amount lower than the Berlin Memorial number.
I'll look at Tohoto.
Yep, keep going down. One more page. Okay, there we go. Totals, district-wide expenses. 434,934. So just eyeball, you can see that number is lower than the elementary schools, although it's supposed to be half, right? Now, if you add up those 3 numbers,
Mhm.
It's a race for the mathematicians here. Who wants to add up those three numbers? Heidi's
I've
not,
done
I
my,
just
my
told you I was
duty
failing
for the
algebra.
night. No, I will add them up. Hold on. I brought my little handy dandy calculator.
It's about 2.5 million, isn't it?
well, you're getting to my point. Once we have the town finance team across the table from us, giving us an official added up
see.
number.
I gotta check to make sure we got the same number first before we say it out loud, and we'll say it out loud together. How's that?
Only if it's right.
That's right.
I
Okay,
rounded
ready?
the 50 cent. whole
1,000,000.
Oh, we have it over here.
603, 960.
1,603,960.
960.
And Kristen, if you'd be so kind as to page up to the first page.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Nope, that's Berlin Memorial, so, sorry.
keep going, one more. You're almost there. All right, there we go. Now let's take a look at the total district-wide expenses budget number there. Whoops, it's 1,000,003. Right, yeah,
779.
yep. So this little exercise, I think, helps all of us understand why the finance director is struggling with the fiscal 25 numbers in the system. But it says to me, to the extent that fiscal 25 is a baseline for calculating 26, we're not, it doesn't translate well. It's not in accordance with the district agreement on how you allocate costs that are shared here. So
And the numbers are plain just incorrect.
the numbers are
So how
incorrect.
can you use it as a baseline? You're just carrying the
Sure,
errors
sure.
from one
You're-
fiscal year to the next.
Well, I was told yesterday that, Aaron didn't do that, that he's got that, and I'm pretty, from what I saw in the presentation yesterday, and I haven't had time to study it, I don't think he's replicating these errors, but these are problematic because I think it impacted Berlin in the sense that the budget was higher than it should have been on according to the cost allocations under the regional agreement. So I don't know where that leaves us. That's a little bit of water over the dam, but nonetheless, to the extent it's driving things this year, it's a bit of a problem for me when I look at this.
I may be able to shed a little bit of light on this. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I did have a discussion regarding the difference in the school budget increase percentage of overall being 4% and change, that it was going up,
Yeah.
versus Berlin's assessment number that was going up just on the operating side by a little over 15%. And one of the issues, I got a bit of a further explanation about exactly what happened when Aaron came in November. So I did send that out in an email, but it was this afternoon, so I'm not sure if everybody saw it. So I will share that the number in the system that had been being used for the budget was different. It was higher. That's why they took the vote back in December to reaffirm the number they had been operating off of. Now, that doesn't include obviously those cuts that were supposed to have been made in FY25 because they were operating off of the higher number. So I don't know if that might be impacting some of why these numbers are off, but
No, I can't imagine that, Kristen. These are budget numbers. They would have been put in, but you get my point is that total here
yeah, it's not matching.
doesn't match what was allocated to the three schools. They're all higher,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So the total is higher and not by a small amount. It's not like $50. It's like
Almost $250,000.
exactly, which is a lot of money.
I didn't know if they were reflecting two different things. That's where I was
No,
trying to.
it's total district-wide expenses, and that the understanding was you allocated. This is under Bob Conroy. This is how it was done. This is in accord with the regional agreement. And I believe that's what Aaron Osborne is doing now. So, but you see all of the trouble that we're having with numbers from last year, that they continue as you look at the running financial system for operating right now. Again, I don't know what you do about this, but it's troubling. Scott, are you with me on this?
I
You see the
followed all
numbers?
I followed all
Yeah.
the numbers, right? And
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it's not totally unexpected because I mean, we've already seen the mess and issues that the previous administration had. So yeah, it's
And Aaron, when he shared these numbers, gave everybody the caveat that encumbrances were inconsistent in how they've been entered and probably expenses as well. But my expectation is at least the budget numbers should have been okay. I mean, but they're not, apparently. At least, I'm showing one category. I don't know. I can't look into the others. I can't do that.
Well, considering there were two different directors of finance during that period of time, as well as a period of time when I believe other people, other than a director of finance, was working on the budget.
Mhm.
I mean, I believe that was freely admitted at some point.
Yep.
Then how can they have accurate numbers?
Well, and all of this goes to how much are we increasing? Like the percent increase is just, I don't know how we can talk about a percent increase when our baseline is so uncertain. It's a little bit of, the only thing I can conclude is that like this percent change, I know you got bottom numbers in the working budget from yesterday, but thank you. Is it really a 7.38%? I mean, I don't know. The
Yeah,
other thing we spent some time talking about yesterday is apparently DESE has discounted entirely the school committee votes that were taken on June 17. But there are minutes. There was a posted meeting. There were minutes. DESE was saying, no, it wasn't proper. And as I read through the minutes, the one vote that was clear was the assessment for Berlin Memorial. And that's not the number that we're working with today. So I don't know what that means either.
I did seek some clarification because it was mentioned in the meeting that I believe first Scott and then myself gave incorrect numbers to town meeting. So I did ask for some clarification on that because if you all remember, I know it was chaotic, certainly agree. But Megan, Scott and I did compare, up in the gym up front before we ultimately wrote up the new motion with the new numbers and handed that to the moderator.
Right.
And that number, which is 8.4 million and change, is consistent with the assessment letter that we received from the district in June that we have been making payments off of. So we never received a revised amount. So if there is a discrepancy in that number somehow, I would like to understand better where that discrepancy is coming from.
But that is the number that the town voted.
Yes, and that is the number that they assessed us and that we're making payments based on every other month.
And I think the difficulty comes to when you try to dial it into one of the two schools, it gets hard to do.
And there's also, I don't have that level of detail, but I'm thinking they clearly said they would have their final proposal of numbers by Friday.
Right.
So
That was clear.
so that could go public. I don't know whether, I guess they're gonna post it on their website. I'm not sure about that. And then the school committee won't vote till Tuesday. And he said it was, for them to digest what it was they'd be voting on.
Right.
So there will be some sense on Friday what direction they're taking for us, right? We will have a clearer sense, whether it's going to look like the presentation they had yesterday.
Yeah.
Or whether it's a different presentation with some changes. I do understand, and I don't mean to diminish this, I do understand the frustration with last year and the numbers and your little exercise you put us through that demonstrates clearly some challenges in accounting.
Hmm.
But to whatever degree we can, I would like to see us focus on FY26 because we know what our budget is.
Right.
And we know what they're asking. And that's the problem we need to solve. I don't know that we can solve the lack of accounting for the last year. And I don't want to diminish it. I'm really not trying to do that. But I think our energy is better focused on what can we afford? What do we need them to come in at? And be ready to talk about that. That's all I have to say about that.
I like what you said, Cliff. Can't argue with it.
And I started to change the numbers based on yesterday's presentation, but I stopped because another thing that was said during the meeting was that, as you mentioned, the school committee needed time to digest those numbers. Those were not necessarily the numbers that are going to be presented next Tuesday. So I don't want to adjust our numbers by those because I think those were rough number or draft numbers rather.
I thought I understood a little differently than you.
Okay.
That the numbers they're going to present on Friday, which will be public to the community as well as the school committee, are the numbers that the superintendent and finance director are recommending to the school committee to approve. Yes, there is the possibility that the school committee at their meeting could vote to change a number. They could. One would hope they would not. That they would, put their faith and trust in the leadership they've hired, who have worked with the town to come up with a solution, the best solution they feel they can come up with. It's not our solution, it's their solution. And that they would support that, whatever it is. So I'd like to think the numbers are a little firmer than you think they might be.
And maybe on Friday they will. I just was hesitant to put these
Oh,
numbers from
I agree.
yesterday.
I would
That
not-
was more what I meant.
Yeah, I would not use
No.
these numbers.
No.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sure, I concur with what you said.
Yeah, it was a
Friday.
budget subcommittee meeting and so I view it as very much a working session and
Mhm.
as Scott correctly noted that the proposed assessment numbers are lower than we saw in February,
Yes.
which is good news for the town budget. And
Thank you for providing this because it was really hard to watch and not being able to see the document.
I'll thank Peg, she photocopied it for me, but
As you all learned last week, I can't do that kind of thing.
I'm a visual learner as well, so I understand
I
that.
need it in front of me.
Yeah,
And
so
the photocopies, there's some numbers here on page 13 at the top that are in dark green. I don't know if you might want to translate them from the color copy because you can't, I don't think you can read them.
I
If you can
definitely
even this
cannot.
clearly, but I can
Oh my
pass.
God.
Yeah, it's pretty bad on that copy and he apologized. Kristen, one thing that might be helpful, I can't remember if it was Al Ganem or Aaron Osborne that asked me whether the town budget was, where they could look at the town budget. And I said, well, I'm pretty sure it's on the website. I wasn't certain, but it might be helpful if you could send them a link to right where it is.
Sure. I actually did email the 26th budget to Al and Aaron earlier this week. So I don't know.
Maybe Al just didn't see it yet.
Yeah.
Probably. But if either was inspired to look at the website, they would have found it. So.
They did email me and ask me for a copy of it, so I
Okay.
did send that over. There may have been a bit of a delay between when they emailed me and when I sent it, just because I'm a little inundated in email right now.
Well, I think because I was sitting in front of them, they asked me.
Fair enough.
Okay, so on our budget, I mean, what do we want to at least fill in as of today? We understand their ask. I mean, we can only go by, we know that they, presented in December. They further refined it in the February 12th meeting. And here, and they said they're going back and, as Cliff likes to, fact that they said they're sharpening their pencils. They seem to have done that. And at least from a BMS standpoint, I mean, right, that's a reduction of $480,000. Which is obviously very significant. So right now we've got in the budget, the operating assessment number we're using is 4,993,452, with the budget that they were showing yesterday of 4,512,926. Do we want to, at least for the time being, I'm assuming, I mean, they're at least we're taking from the administration's budget and what they're working down on to put in at the moment, the 4,512,926 number as they're recommended as of today. Would that be reasonable to work off some numbers?
So Scott, you want to take just that total dollar increase that was discussed yesterday? That
Correct,
sum
with
of,
the new BMS assessment number, which is $480,000 less than the February 12th BMS assessment number.
okay, so you wanted to look at it with the number, with the dollar increase of,
Yeah, it's the 4,000,005. Well, I don't know what the dollar increase, but if
yeah, okay,
you should-
right, because, well, two things changed between February and what was presented yesterday. Both the BMS number and the Tohoto above MLC number, they both went down. So there were two
Oh,
changes.
what about
Scott.
our assessment? Did our assessment change? I'm looking at what they have in the sheet that what Kristen
Yeah,
sent to
but-
me. It seems like oh,
You don't have
let's
the,
see.
I don't know if you have the benefit of looking at the February number. It's
Oh,
on
yes, the
six.
above MLC, that also correct. That is a decrease of 130,000. Am I reading that right?
Yep.
Or
It's 20,777. That number.
That's what
right?
it was.
Yeah.
And now it's 1947.
Is that a calculator you got there, Heidi?
I'm entering them into the budget just temporarily I'm gonna highlight them so that I.
Well,
forget.
Scott's looking at how much did the number come down between
Oh.
February and yesterday.
Oh, I got you, sorry.
And so we were focused on the BMS number, but there's also the Tohoto above MLC number.
Yep, so I just put
Yeah.
the BMS number.
right, which basically means, I mean, the Tohoto MLC and the above MLC, we add them up. That would be our assessment number. And
Yeah, okay, so-
right,
so
and that has
that-
about $130,000 drop. So what do those two numbers add up to? Maybe Kristen can add those into the spreadsheet or replace the 212 numbers.
Do we use one number for Tohoto?
That's a
Both the
significant
MLC
drop.
and the above MLC? To get their total?
Yes, we take the total is what our assessment would be.
Heidi's doing it now from the,
I think it,
Oops.
I'm sure it drops down to.
And then I put in the old number, yeah.
I just saw,
Oh,
I saw in that
that's
section
right.
where Tohoto went up even though
Elementary
elementary school and.
All
So
right,
I have a
it
new
works.
total number of 3,863,388 for Tohoto Berlin
sounds about right.
assessment.
Tohoto, I'm coming up with 3,863,388.
3,863,388. That is exactly what I have.
okay,
Perfect.
so during that conversation, Heidi just subtracted the total from yesterday. 8.3 million from what the total was in February, 8.9 million. The difference is 610,172. So that's how much the assessment changed. It dropped 610,172.
Right, so that drops the operating increase down then to 575,439 from the 1.186 that
Yeah.
it was.
That's what my note says.
Yay, I was hoping somebody I could cross-check with. All right, I'm gonna share my screen.
I'm reluctant to share numbers, not my strength. I majored in English lit.
I was an international studies major, so I don't know what any of you are listening to me now.
If we look at the presentation from yesterday on that page 13, the dollar change number is 575,439.
Yeah.
But that's between the two fiscal years, right? So I don't.
I think we just need to leave that alone. I think we
Yeah.
need to just,
Okay.
Yeah, bottom line.
I mean, right.
I hear you.
I get that. Oh,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really, I get
But
that.
your approach is better. This is a better approach. Just to do our numbers. Yep, I agree.
So then if I do, oh, look at that. See, I made them equal one another, so it already updated it over there. So then if I take out capital,
Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
They were still milling in the hole.
no, so that, what that says, and I had to think about that for a minute because I could present this in a better way, but if we take out capital, the total increase is $1,059,134. If you subtract out, oh, this is where I started to do it. You put it, if you subtract out the new growth from that of 577,913, then you can see that we're down to about a little less than half of that number. And that is still within the levy, but it is still a significant increase. So,
Yeah, I do, I've done a quick calculation myself. Previously, their previous number, just for operating, again, we don't even know the debt and operating, not touching on capital at all. Before the numbers we used when we did this last week, it came out to be, if you funded to that number, it would have been 9.7% increase. This brings the number down, if you went to the full amount, to a 5.65. Again, this is a rough number, increase to the levy. So they've come a long ways to obviously getting this into a, from catastrophic to still large.
It's simply awful.
Well, I mean, yes, I mean, but it is, it is a good jump. And we've been able to bring this down. Now, we didn't do these numbers here before the adjustments to the town. I mean, Kristen was able to look at the town and knock off over $100,000 from the town. When we did these numbers last Wednesday, that was already after the town adjustments. So there's been some, it's a very positive movement.
it's
It's,
substantial.
it's
Yes.
substantial.
Yes, it is substantial. Still not a pretty picture,
It
but
didn't
it's
wave the
still
magic
substantial.
wand and solve the problem, but it was substantial.
Increase, not, we have to double check it against our dollar amount, right? What do you mean? Because this is based on what they're saying the operating budget is for 25. That's the difference.
You are right.
So-
No. Nope, because I actually am using those numbers based off of the difference between FY 25 and FY 26.
Okay,
So
Those are the monies that the property taxes paid for FY 25.
right,
And
so
this would be the increase of what they would be
Okay.
asking for more property taxes to fund. So we are in sync there.
Yeah, it's a good question, and that's part of the reason that I plug it into the spreadsheet, because then it goes from our starting point, from our assessed number to what the assessed number would be for 26, because we know that's different than what the schools have as a starting point. So by putting it into the spreadsheet here, I'm actually going from the FY 25 town meeting adopted number of 4.27 to the now new request of 4.5. So that's so that works out to a $241,649 increase at BMS. And likewise, a $333,790 increase at Tohoto,
Okay.
just on the assessment. Let me just make sure those do add up.
Second, Doug's.
Does it look okay? Oh, yeah, oh, it's here because it's jumping there. Okay. And then this one is picking up
Those two.
those two, it's referring to here, and this one is picking up those two. There we go. Okay, I had to check all my formulas referring back to one another to make sure I did that correct. Yep, so that's picking up the dollar change from 25 town meeting to 26 request as of yesterday.
No, as of yesterday.
So that still would leave us $481,221 in the hole on the operating. But that's certainly better than 1.186. Much better.
And this is using the 2.5% number.
And that's using the correct. That's using the 2.5% number. So you want to play over here, Scott, with these guys again?
Yes, let's do that. We will be able to, let's see, what do we have there?
You're gonna have to help me. It was late when we did this.
Um,
New
so revenue left after Tohoto debt increase 73335. Okay, this is depending on the increased numbers we do. So you can plug in, if you put in the 5% increase, which is 755, 826 number, or bring up that cell number maybe.
Oh, I see how I did
Just
this.
like here,
Okay.
why was that? We had 1711. Oh, the 1711 because it includes the
Because new growth is
200,000.
in there
Right.
too.
Yes. Okay. Good.
Oh, that's pretty close.
Is that town increase number right? 243?
Nope. It's changed slightly. You are correct. Thank you.
It's 246,195.
Because I put in that slight amount of money for the Powder House News. Just blame the Powder House News. Yeah, the 2,500 that I put back in. That number is correct, and that number is correct.
Hmm.
So, hold on. Oh, the wording was wrong, but I took it from the line item, so the number was correct, even though the wording was wrong. CO 238. Right? No, no, I'm totally wrong. Just kidding. Let me fix that. 246, 195. There we go.
Is the paint dry yet?
I make no guarantees when I do this on the fly. I please understand.
Nor should you. Yes, just
Right. So basically that the 5%, they would have revenue of 472,131 to go to their operating increase of 575,439. So at 5%, they still short just over 103,000. Right, so that leaves them sort of the revenue line 241, 472, 131. And right now, the operating increase is up on line 234, column C2, which is 575.
Scott,
I'm not
where are
following
we on
that.
the page?
I'm
lost.
Which
Okay,
column are you in?
so if you look at line 240, line 241, column CL,
41.
right,
Yeah, this one.
that would leave them at 5%, would leave them 472,131 for the operating budget of BBRSD. And the operating budget right now increase is, if you go up to line 234, column CT, is 575, 439.
Okay,
I see
So
your point.
that number is
Yeah.
still no, $103,000.
mm-hmm,
Oh, but I did already factor that in down here, Scott.
Already factored in what
The operating increase and the debt.
um
So that leaves us a deficit of 481. Is that,
And you've got the debt.
I'm
there.
not sure.
and that brings
The
us up to
four-
472?
No, the 481, let's take a look here. That's showing only new funds of 577,913. It's not showing basically that 5%, it's not showing the extra 2.5%.
Right, the 577 consists of 2.5% plus 200,000 in new growth.
Correct.
But then what I started subtracting from that was the town's increase, the Assabet increase, and now the operating and debt increase for BBRSD. And that left us 481,221 in the hole.
Correct. Remember, the
So-
472,131 number is not additional revenue that's available. That's the new number. That's the 955,826, just right there in line 238 in column CL, subtracting those other obligations, the town and the Assabet increase, leaving that amount of money available.
They're
to
not matching.
offset the correct. They aren't going to match. You're going to have them matching. What is that number is leaving your 481,221 and your 472,131. There's no correlation in those numbers. They're not
Okay,
going to.
and I'm trying
Yeah.
to make them correlate. That's my
Yeah,
problem.
They
Okay.
might, you might think
Mhm.
that it's like, oh, it's almost exactly those. No. What
That's
it
what I
means
was
is
trying to
the
do.
number, like the important number for 472,131, if you wanted to put a yellow on it, on line 241 would be yellowing the on line 238 CT, the 577,913.
Oh, it needs to, okay.
Yeah. Those are the numbers. And maybe you want to use two different colors instead of yellow, because then
Use something
people will correlate those to the other.
Can't see purple.
You can have
Let's
used
do
the lighter
blue.
one.
That's blue. Is that like really hard to see?
A little bit lighter, maybe. We're all
You
about.
don't get to pick your shade.
Desire.
Blueberry.
It won't let you.
We're gonna do orange. How's
Okay.
that?
There you go. I like that.
Orange, you glad I changed it? 9 minutes
Yes.
of 9.
I was gonna say, forget it.
My grandmother would be so proud of me right now.
I don't know why on line 244 column the 575, I would expect that 575 439 to match the 577 913. I don't know if we ever somehow updated, or I don't know how those, because that's the operating
Oh, yeah, this
increase
doesn't
for
match.
Berlin. Those two numbers should match. So assuming one of them is slightly off somehow here.
In the budget.
Do I don't like it when it does that to me. It matches the operating increase of 575,
Yes.
439. It does
Yes.
not
Oh, yes,
include the,
correct. Yes. Oh, sorry. Yeah, not the
Hmm.
that was 239. Okay, so yeah, so that I think gives you the number. So right now, if you had a 5% levy increase, it's still $103,000 deficit.
If you were to change the 577 over to the 955, is that how it would?
Is this, yeah, okay,
It's pretty
so
much-
does this need to be this? Is that,
955.
oh, sorry, hold on, let me try that again.
Just
Change it to this number here?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so they're still short.
yes,
103.
well, they would be short
went with
if you
5%.
went with a 5%, yes.
What would we? Yeah. Right.
I'm not trying to pick a number, I'm just trying to get
Understood.
where we are. Our worst case scenario and work from there. Of course, our worst case scenario, we don't know what capital is, but
Capital would only be done if we had free cash, right?
Scott, this is
the
a help.
expectation is that we would try to fund capital only with free cash. Or the capital with free cash.
Because it's a one-time
So
thing.
I'm gonna have to ask this question because I don't understand. When we're talking about 5% plus new growth,
Mm-hmm,
you increase it from 2.5
correct.
to 5. So the assumption is we have to go 2.5% over the 2.5%.
That is correct.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I didn't want to like make that assumption and take it to. All right,
Right, so by doing that, by going from 2.5 to 5, that gives us 377,000 in more revenue, which as we did down here.
yeah,
It shows that it would, so yep, so that checks out.
So out of all this, is there a number that you can give back to Alan, Aaron tomorrow where they were so pushy on Mary?
Well, no,
Yesterday.
actually, they weren't. It was school committee was pushing me for a number.
Okay, so is there a number that you can give him like Boylston did to say 500 is our top dollar? Can you say, we've made X assumptions, we have not put in capital? Our suggested number to you that Berlin can now afford with an X% increase is blah.
Well, before you answer that question, you know.
Oh, I'm not answering that question, I'm
No,
asking
no.
the question.
Okay, all right. Are you on the mic?
No, you're
Can you hear me?
not.
No.
Would you?
Scott, I'm gonna let.
I can hear her very
Select board
well where
speak.
she's at, so.
Okay,
All right, well, just for recording purposes, the question that I asked is out of this spreadsheet that is being displayed now, is there a number that can be given to the school committee where they were pressing for a number like Boylston, who said the highest that we can go is 500,000? Are there assumptions that we can make and say, we haven't included capital? Our top number that we can give you is X, so that as they're sharpening their pencils tomorrow and Friday, that they can start to work towards that. And then the part B question is, can anybody take a wild guess and throw capital in? I mean, if you only gave them 300,000 from last year, and I know that we don't have free cash, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if you go on an assumption that that value is approximately the same, what does that do to that number? Going back to my
Right.
seat now.
Correct. That's the reason
okay.
trying to get these, working from these numbers. Can we bring up the capital? Do you happen to have? Because they said a order listed capital. Is this it? Is this their order
Yeah.
listed? Because
Well,
I think
Yeah, it's
the
in
number
it's in
one was
yesterday's
the.
presentation, Scott.
Let me make sure it matches then, because this is as of
Yeah,
February.
this
12th.
is in order because I know as they said,
they've
elevator
ordered it, yeah.
controls is
Ordered
a
it, right.
is
It's on page
number
15
one.
Of yesterday's presentation.
Oh, yeah, it's completely different than what I have.
That's different.
Hold on, send you a pic.
Just if this is a spreadsheet you have there, you can just put another column, just put 1 through whatever, and then resort.
Okay. It looks like that a lot of them are changed to come off. So, hold on.
Oh, okay. We'll be patient.
Do you have any way of saying how much it's gonna cost extra under tax bill?
They're at 310,919.
Okay, so the BMS capital, we knew the number, being the elevator is just a must for them.
Yeah,
Repairs is 192. They actually talked about their cameras that they do not have at BMS for outside, 45,000. And then I was gonna guess that number two would have been what they have as three, which is the device replacement, 61,400. So in their top three, coincidentally, that number comes to 298,400. Then you get into the replace roof, which is of course going into the 300 plus number. That's just for BMS. Do we have a Tahanto capital?
Yes.
that they
Yes.
discussed?
hold on.
Yeah.
Down quite a bit.
On its way.
Okay. So they have on the number one being replacing the middle school furniture at 206,000. Auditorium projector and controller, number two at 35, and number three being student device replacement. I see the BMS, they combine student and staff together. But they have student at 100,000, staff at 45,000. If you work from those numbers, do we have a number of what the ratio is? I know we always use the 1/3, 2/3, but do we have the accurate? Did they have any place in there? Can we see, looking at the Tahanto numbers, can we calculate more
Yeah, Berlin's,
precisely what our share is?
yeah,
On
know
the
it's-
capital, it's,
two
yeah,
57, 350.
On the whole
What-
list.
If you look
What
at
do you
that,
mean,
if
257,
you look at
350?
page 16, the second slide says total capital assessments. And if you look at Tahanto
Oh.
Capital, it breaks it out between the two towns.
Okay, and what are those percentages broken out?
So the number, for FY 26 for Tahanto for Berlin is 257, 350. And then it's 488, 283 for Boylston.
Okay, but that's using the whole, all the total numbers for
Oh, I
capital.
thought you meant what was our, what
Well,
was
I just
our-
want to get the percentage if we were giving them some guidance
so the.
thing. So what would be the percentage of, what is our breakdown? Unfortunately, the numbers are slightly cut up. Oh, wait a second, that's because I zoomed in. So Tahanto Capital, if they did the ratio of, just a second here.
I'm calculating it, Scott, just give me a second here.
Sure.
7, 4, 5, 3. So the allocation to Berlin is 34.5% of the total,
34.5%.
34.5, yeah, which
Okay,
is where I think it would be. That's consistent with regional agreement. Driven by pupil numbers, the relative enrollment.
all right, so I'm just, just throwing out numbers and just getting ballpark things. So looking at, if you use 34% and you looked at the Tahanto Capital, again, I'm just having to make decisions just for illustrative purposes. And you looked at the Tahanto Capital and you took I don't know if you want to take the top three or the top four. And what I say, if you took the top four, it would be a little bit consistent with BMS, which would be taking it through the staff/student device replacement. Of course, in BMS, number three is combined student and staff device replacement. Tohoto was broken out, but if you took the top four of Tohoto, the number is 386,000. Berlin share at 34% would be 131,240. And then
Give me
you
that number one
have
more time, Scott. 100 and
okay,
how many?
131,240 would be a Berlin share of the top four, which is going through the student/staff device replacement using 34%. If you use the same theory with the BMS and went through device replacement, which is the top three, that's 298,400. So you're looking at those would be a capital number of 429,640, which of course exceeds, if you went by a 300,000 number, but exceeds by 129,640. I'm just looking, just trying to get something to.
We have a bit of an issue though, unfortunately, and I'm sure this is just a formula error. When I enter all of the Tohoto numbers into my spreadsheet, it actually totals up to $986,633. So one or more of these
bottom
lines
two.
are not being captured,
The bottom two.
the bottom two. So those numbers are going to be different. The bottom line numbers are going to be
Let's
different.
see. I'm
Because
just
it's
looking
different,
at.
241. Oh, no,
Yeah,
it's
I'm
more
still
than that.
sharing my screen, I think. Yeah.
Did you get 980? I can't see 986.
633.
Was it the student device replacements and the?
I couldn't get it to add
I don't
up,
know.
but something's
Well-
not adding.
Well, as long as let's just go back here.
Let me just make sure it's not me.
No.
Are you worried about this is
Manual.
affecting the percentage?
Well, it's gonna affect, ours is gonna go up. Because it's not 34% of 745, 633. It's gonna be 34.5% of 986, 633.
Well, I'm just looking here.
He
They
was just
put
looking at
fiscal
either
year
the
in
top
what you
four.
sent. They have a
Okay.
in the
The top,
PowerPoint.
the top three, right? Or
Well,
top
in
four.
the
Yeah, can you do
PowerPoint, I don't know what
34%
they
of each of
use.
those?
Yeah, he was looking specifically.
Sorry, Scott, on the
Doesn't seem
Tohoto
right.
capital,
I
were you
brought up
looking at
decimal
the
point.
top three or the top four?
So I was putting the top four.
The top four, because
Four.
these two should actually be combined.
Yeah,
Okay.
Heidi's got it.
Thank you.
All right, I got it. I think if we're using 34.5% and you want to just add up the top four. $133, $170.
Ish. Approximately.
Yes,
I like the. ish.
Okay, you came up with
Said ish.
133, 170. All right.
technical term-ish.
Okay, so you're in combined with the 298, 400. So you're looking at like 431 something.
Oh, you're talking about taking the top three from BMS?
Yeah.
That's, yep. Wow, it's good, Scott. 298, 400.
Well, I already had it here.
Oh,
so-
you did. I thought you did that off the top of your head. I was gonna give you credit.
Hmm.
$431, $570. Total.
And is
Okay.
that a full free cash number?
Um,
I don't
Well,
know.
I'd say the tough part of working
Well-
off a a non-number.
An unknown.
So last year, just for reference, we had 533,000 in capital for everyone. So if I had to guess, I would say no,
Uh-huh.
because the other capital requests total 294, 585 from free cash. So we have to balance the school requests and the town requests
Yeah.
with the recommended. Now, again, it is recommended that we spend 30% of free cash on capital. And Scott Hawkins always reminds us that it's a policy from DOR.
Yeah.
So that it is recommended. Obviously, if there was an extraordinary need.
Yep.
We could make a policy decision to shift it for a year.
So it's
But
all,
that's,
but it's also guidelines that were debated in this committee
yes, they
with
were.
select board. So it is also a town guideline. It's not just,
It is an
DOR.
adopted town guideline,
yes, that's what I'm. Yeah.
right? So
And that-
I'll
and
show
that Capital
you,
projects is 30% of whatever that free cash number is.
right? So, and this is what it is. Notice how much I filled in. No, it's down to just what the breakout is. So
Yeah,
that
so,
is the adopted plan.
right, if you went by, so basically I just did a calculation of adding that town number of 294,585 with the, using the number we just did for capital of 431,570 and subtracting the 533, that's a deficit of 193,155. Using the guidance number, again, we're making up not making up capital numbers for the schools, but we're giving a general guidance number, or we're trying to work towards a guidance number.
Well, I did ask Capital to rate and rank the capital projects. I know they prefer to have a number first, so I don't know if you want, if we're hoping for next week, hopefully, ish.
Well, for submission, I don't know how long it's gonna take to actually get a
Well,
number.
to get it certified
Yeah.
by the state, but you'll know the number that you're requesting to be certified.
Ish.
So I don't know if you want to wait for Capital's recommendation on how much to give or recommend to give the schools for capital and just make an operating recommendation at this time, because one is free cash and the other is not.
I think that's a more prudent decision. It's just for operational. First of all, they can obviously come back and watch this meeting to see we're throwing around numbers.
Sure.
And yeah, I think we can avoid having a recommended capital since we have a capital planning team whose job should be that and not for us to I would be happy to have another committee to jump in front of them.
But I do have this for reference in here, and when Capital does meet next, I can certainly share this with them, the updated and ranked projects.
Given the time, what are we going to do now?
We can work on the hard problem, now going back to the operating.
All right. And this is really a comfort level question, right? I mean,
Right. And we can also, we've done the rough numbers here of doing the 2.5, 5 going in 2.5% increments. Now that we can throw away the 7.5 and 10% numbers,
yeah,
do we maybe just want to do the incremental increase of by 0.5 or 1 and showing the the 2.5 and 3.5 and 4.5 and
Sure.
5.5, and just to give some guidance.
Do 5.
Can we put in a 4?
I'll put in a 4.
Yeah, because we've
Yes,
hit
we-
the residential taxpayers north of 4, 2 years running, and I think that ought to be our ceiling. 1.5.
That is my concern, is that if you give them numbers to say,
Mm.
we can do you at 4%, we can do you at 4.5%, we can do you at 5%. Anyone is going to take the 5, and then that's where the rock, paper, scissors battle comes in of.
So yeah, put another line in there, please, Kristen, and let's look at 3. That's where I'd like to focus. Yeah.
And this is for us,
These are the
not
things
for
that-
someone else.
Well, it's public meeting, so everybody can see this, right? But yes, I mean, this is our,
Oh.
to, showing,
Right?
No, that's up to you.
It's our thinking out loud.
Hold on, there's
Yeah.
one easier.
we have to think out loud in a public meeting.
That's not good. Let me get to the 0.5. If I can do a 0.5 and a 1%, that would actually make this a lot easier.
There you go. That's a really smart way to think about it.
Summary. Okay. Scott, did you do this math out in your head already, or you want me to figure it out?
No, I have not.
Okay. Hold on. So when we did levy.
Hey, isn't it an hour earlier where you are, Scott?
It is an hour earlier. My father just,
Oh.
Well,
my
then-
father just wandered in, so, I was a little
Alright.
distracted.
Tell him we need your full attention.
Unless he's gonna help you with the numbers.
You can help me, feel free. So we're gonna do, the way that we do it is. No. Why do I have this little pencil down here that's keeping
Well,
me from?
if you
to
click
move
on
things.
line 248, line CL, what's your formula there?
If I click on where?
Right there.
Line 248 CL.
It's not a formula. I stole it
Oh,
from the first
okay.
page.
But go to your first.
That's why I was
page and
trying to
look
go
at
back to
that.
the first page, but I have this little thing, this stupid thing here that won't go away.
What won't go away on you?
Why? What is that?
I don't
Mhm.
see what won't go away, so it must be just on your screen.
I can't, I
Oh,
literally, it's,
click- if you
it's
click on
covering
it,
the thing and I
Move
can't,
it.
I'm getting the same move.
it doesn't move.
Okay.
Well, that's the Berlin one.
Literally, it's keeping me, I don't know what happened. It's keeping me, hold on, from moving my spreadsheet. There we go.
No. Oh, we've got it already, yeah.
Zero, I missed a 0. Okay. 75,583. All right, now I've got 0.5 and 1, so that'll make it a little bit easier to do this. Okay, so tell me what you wanted again. You wanted 3?
Yeah, we should, I guess we can do 3, 4, 5.
That's not right, because 4 is, why is 4 lower? Hold on.
X by times 5, what's 250 at a times 6? And 4 would be times
Just
8.
So we dissect that difference. 1, 2, 3.
Hold that number for a second, 755, 826. And this is rounding in estimates, but
Could be wrong.
pretty close.
Pretty close.
Okay,
And maybe just for the last number, put in the 5.5%.
sure. Monkey. Okay. What did this just?
I don't know, but you changed the 5%.
Scott, just for fun on the capital stuff, well, Kristen's doing what she's doing.
Sure.
Heidi added up the Tohoto capital request, those 10 items. There's an
Yep.
error in the total.
That's what I was.
The total, the printed total is 745,000. The actual is 986 and change. So,
Okay.
but I think the assessment between the two towns, that percent that I gave you, 34.5, was calculated on the 745,000 number. So,
Yeah.
Right, so it's
Okay.
gonna be more.
um,
So that's why
no, the percent will be the same, but the dollars will be more.
right, the
I would
total.
think.
So I actually put I put the total amount in here. It should be 986, 633.
Yes.
Yeah. The total shouldn't affect, you can just go off what you had sent me. There's that page, when they did a calculation, assuming the calculation is correct. Let's see, do they have page numbers on this thing?
It's correct based on what the total is up here. but
Right.
It's not because it's different total.
Right, page 16, the total in the top slide of 745, 633 is wrong.
Yes.
It should be 986, 633. Is that what you guys came up with?
Yes.
So that therefore means that our portion of Tohoto Capital in the lower slide is incorrect.
Well, both numbers are incorrect. Those
Yeah.
two numbers in the lower slide add up to the
Because that would be the
745,000.
Yeah.
So the ratio might stay the same, but the actual dollars are gonna change.
Yeah, you look there,
Right.
our spreadsheet, it would be 340, 388 would be what our portion would be based on those.
Based on the correct
Yeah,
addition.
total, yeah.
You can note there, town portion.
Which is a lot more.
Mhm.
Will you be letting them know of their incorrect math?
I can do that.
Yeah, it looks like in their calculations, they left out on their list for Tohoto. Number 3 is not figured in there, number 9 and number 10.
3, 9, and 10. Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so now I think we're good on this. got, and again, this is rough estimate and doing it on the fly, but I think we're pretty close here. So, which one do you want to see? What'd you say, Mary, a 3 or a 4?
Great.
This is all confusing me. Can this go, Scott? This other, that's confusing me.
Let me think, here.
You just
Um,
did the same thing as over there, It's just worded differently.
Right. I do that,
Yeah,
is that
exactly.
gonna mess
and
anybody up?
it's-
No,
Okay. So that's what 3% looks like.
Yep, so they're short, at least with the
405.
present numbers, 405,636.
Yep.
So technically, when you had the stuff over there, that would show you how much extra is left after that.
That was hurting my brain, but yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
If you're looking for a dollar amount to say, hey, this is what we can,
that makes sense. You are functional after 9. I'm giving you
Not
my
really.
gold star for the year
No.
here. All right, so if we did 4. We made our own little like scale calculator thing. Then we're short 254, 470.
do you take the debt out of there? Where that's kind of a,
Maybe, well, yeah, I mean, we can't,
I mean,
well,
with them, it
it is
doesn't
an
really matter. It's a
increase.
it's a total.
Yeah, and then can
We
you just
have
put
to
in
pay the
the,
debt.
can you do the 5.5 number? I just want to see how close that zeros it.
Close. 27,721. Five, 7, 5.
All right, anybody want any of the other numbers? 5 or 4.5, or give us all of them? Maybe this,
Based on the number right now. But if they could cut it a little more.
I like 3, Scott. What's our consumer price? What's our inflation rate? Right,
3 and
So-
change.
Yeah.
3 and change, that's what I like.
That means another $405,000 in cuts.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would be, well, we'd have to ask, but with the fact they've already cut out 600,000,
So,
another 4, I would imagine would be extremely challenging.
so Kristen, I'm gonna go to the way I thought yesterday, which was when the Boylston FinCom, Karen said, our number is 500,000. I don't think we should be north of Boylston. I think we should be, okay, we should be south of Boylston. And maybe you don't want to go to 2/3, but I think it ought to be, I'll be generous and say 4/5.
Well, if you're doing it that way, I would be more comfortable giving them a number by which we would be willing to increase as opposed to a number by which they would have to cut. Well, I mean, I guess it's the same, but I would
Yeah.
be more comfortable saying like, okay, so it's 3/5 of Boylston, so it's 300,000. Do you know what I mean? Like,
So, right, so Kristen, yes, yeah,
if you're going to go in that direction.
and we just, the number that's up there right now is 3.
3.
Okay, so if you back out, well, the debt is included in the Boylston 500,000.
Is it?
That's
Is
the,
capital as well?
yep, the only thing that Karen mentioned outside would be vocational school where they have to pay tuition and transportation, so that was an additional thing that they were talking about, but I really think that, I don't want to do again what we did last year. And those relative dollar increases, I think we need to. I know we gotta think about the residential taxpayers here. Sorry, we just have to. And I'm not liking that. My gut over the last
No.
few years has been we all were looking at pretty high inflation a couple of years, and then it slowed down and it's been slow. And that's why I said, well, maybe we're all experiencing that around 3%, but the town is not, the town is going pretty much flat. And so I can't ask the people in this town to pay those.
Sacrifice anymore.
No, I think it's because it's 3 years running. I can't good in honesty do that. And
What was the reaction, if any, when Boylston Finance Committee member put out there that dollar amount?
nothing.
Nothing.
It's exactly the number that was put out last year in exactly the same way.
Because
And-
it was
Yeah.
put to them pretty much, we have 500,000 to give you.
Yeah, and like, there's lots of unanswered questions of what that 500,000 means. We talked about, it's not clear if that includes the capital number.
Right, so giving it the benefit of the doubt, Scott, if that truly is operating in debt. Well, with the scenario that Kristen just plugged in for us, we're
I just put in
No.
3.5, just so you know.
right, but the number that isn't changing is BBRSD operation in debt, and that's 648,974. So that's too high.
At the 3.5%, that would mean that they'd have to cut it back to just about 300,000 total. That's what I was trying to see what it would be if you
Oh,
were
I see
saying
what
Thank
you're
you, June.
You know
That's-
what I mean?
You're thinking more clearly than I am with the
reversed of what you're saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
Don't give me a percentage. Put it in the percent column, it's gonna give me a percentage.
Yeah, I missed unfortunately, I missed our numbers when we were,
Oh, 'cause it's
what,
giving me double negative.
you made it, this number of 330.53 is 3.5%.
Yeah,
Actually, I can easily do the math there. We have the 75,583, so
Oh,
It's,
sorry, June, I see what you
Yes.
mean now.
yeah,
My-
if you want
I'm
to
slow.
throw out a number of about
Is that
300,
right? Is that what I got to?
yeah.
So if you did 3.5% plus new growth, that would leave 318,921 for Berlin Boylston.
I think that's a number that is reasonable.
Ish. It's not
Ish. Thank
estimate
you.
only.
Thank you.
Mary, does that number line up with the calculation that's on the agreement? About where, what did you say, we're 3/5 the population?
No, the agreement is, I was
Okay.
thumbnailing everything when I spoke
Okay.
about the agreement, just because I think it's easier for people who are tuning in to understand that there are 2 pages where you operate some different formulas, and one looks 5 years back
A little bit less than what we've done.
with the
over
state
last few
numbers, and then
years.
another combines a couple of numbers
So
around
what are we looking
Tohoto,
at
and you
as
look at 3 years
payers?
back. But
Not-
all of it is
yeah.
driven by pupil enrollment.
No, that's. without
And
capital.
so you
So-
can give or take 10-15% on things, but really the pupil enrollment is gonna drive the relative ratios between the towns. So that's why when I say, okay, last year, our total
Just walk some-
on the operating and debt was around 832,000 increase over the previous year, where Boylston was 500,000 increase. I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do that to our taxpayers again. And I'm not saying Boylston's got the wrong number, far from it. And we really don't know, I don't think, what it costs to run the school over the last 2 years because of what are clearly defined errors in the numbers. So I And when I look at the macro environment, I look at the inflation and what we all have to pay a little more for or not, and I don't see it. I did, when the numbers weren't clear, but the inflation rate was much higher, I said, okay, yeah, I know schools need more money. I don't know how much, but I know they do, and that informed me at the time. But now we're having a little more insight into the numbers, and it's clear that the two previous fiscal years, there's just irregularities. So what do? You do the best you can. I'd like to be in the hard numbers and actually have that, and we're going to get there. I have a lot of confidence in the current administrative people in the district, but I can't, I have to sit here and thinking about the town and knowing what was last year, was it 4.6% on the residents?
Oh, it ended up
And
being
then-
more because we had a reduction in local receipts.
Local
So it's
receipts
more than
and it's
that.
The,
And
the
then-
shift.
And then I think the
Yeah.
previous year was 4.4. It was, but
The previous year was 4, but last year it was 4.25, but with the shift in, like, as Kristen said, the numbers, our projections for new growth was short, so it resulted in it being greater than that.
Right, it was 6.5.
Really?
was it?
I don't think it
That's-
was that. I'd like to do the math, but I'd have to do 'cause
Over
you have to-
FY 24.
Well, it gets complicated because you have to subtract out new growth, right? So we would just have to figure out what was our levy number for FY 24.
So this is
And-
your actual for 24, including new growth, was 14,663,603.
Okay,
And then your actual, that's even higher. Your actual for 25 was 15,116,537. Including new growth.
okay.
Can we go back to that other thing we were working on?
Yeah.
And when you were calculating the 3.5%, what was the number? I'm sorry. Oh, I don't want to make you read.
No, no,
it.
no. This is the magic of the undo button. And just make sure that is the 3.5 number. Yeah. So when you do that. It's just over, it's like 319,000.
Okay. Well, given that they've already dropped it 575K.
I think they dropped it 610,000. 526.
I think it would be worth. I don't even know how to convey this information to them, to tell you the truth. I don't really know the best way of doing that. Suppose we were committed to a limit of 3.5%.
That means they would have to make another
$330,000 in
in
cuts.
cuts, correct?
But isn't Boylston pretty much requesting the same thing out of them? By giving them a flat number?
They're giving a flat number, but unfortunately, we don't know the full context of that. The other part of the problem we don't know is that flat number such that they're going to have to make cuts to get to their flat number? I don't know what their increase in assessment was at Tohoto. I think the Boylston Elementary School, they were looking at possibly even a slight decrease. Do we happen to have their assessment increase at
Sure.
Tohoto
Hang
over
on.
last year?
There's an error. This is on page 14, total Boylston assessment.
Does it compare to last year's?
It's a 4%.
No, the numbers he didn't put the fiscal 25 numbers in. Just the 26.
No, but he does have a change number there.
The total change at the bottom.
Yeah.
And the total Boylston change is 495,746, and our total change is 575. So our total change is higher.
Okay, so their total change of 495, that's both, that's their operating for,
Operating
Tohoto and
assessments, Scott, operating assessments, yeah.
operating assessments for, that's a combination of Tohoto and,
Yeah.
Boylston Elementary.
Yes, yep.
Okay, so they're basically that $500,000 number, at least in terms of operating, they're right at pretty much even on that number based on that latest budget. And with the unknown of what that means for what was their, that's just operating. What about the debt number? Because obviously
Yeah.
their debt increase probably increases more because they hadn't been getting the extra bond
Yeah.
like we had it.
Debt went up 73,535. I did factor that into this.
Well, that was ours, but what about Boylston's?
Oh,
Is that shown in there?
yes. Ours, well, it doesn't show the increase, but it gives you the amount.
Mhm.
Ours is, our total debt is 533,470. Boylston's is 1,012,180.
So what's the do they show that bond that was missing, what share of Boylston's number is, or is it just show the combined number?
Right.
So the 2018 bond, do they show you what the Boylston's assessment is this year? Because we know last year it was just like us, it was 0.
On page 14, they do, don't they?
Yeah, they do, Scott. It's roughly, the ratio is roughly 2 to 3, Berlin to Boylston. on the
So
debt.
what is their dollar amount there?
Oh, I gotta.
Um, Well, Krista just gave you the total assessment. This is going to be the fiscal 26. Berlin is 533,000. Boylston is 1,012,000.
Right. I was just trying to figure out what their whole dollar increase of operating the debt, because we know that piece was missing, of not even knowing capital. I mean, whether that 500,000 on their side is even, assuming he's not even covering capital. If the operating is 495,000 increase, plus they had that debt increase of, if our, now I don't know what, but I mean, it's probably got to be in the neighborhood of like 150,000 increase on their
They have to come
debt
up with
number.
4%.
They have to cut 250.
So
I can't
I'm
speak
just
to
trying to
increase on the
understand.
debt, Scott. We don't have
What?
that in front of us.
I just try to get an idea. I mean, is just the $500,000 number, are they having to go back and they're going to have to cut on their side, which possibly, I mean, obviously they could, if they do have to cut,
They
they
have
cut
to cut
Boylston
for-
Elementary, doesn't touch us at all
Tohoto,
or help us any. But if they cut at Tohoto, obviously we get some benefit there.
But the debt number isn't gonna change.
The debt, no.
Yeah, the debt number can't change for them.
Right.
But I just try to
Well,
understand. I think maybe we need the conversation from, we have to ask, I guess, the Boylston finances. Is that 500,000 to cover their entire operating debt increase? Because we're seeing a debt increase because of the missing bond and capital, or is it excludes capital? I mean, what?
Scott, if you're willing to send an email to Howard, he could probably explain it.
Yeah.
I don't think I think Howard will know what that 500,000 applies to. Yeah. And clearly it doesn't include the debt because the debt's 1.2 million.
Well, that's 1.2 total. They're giving him 500,000 for the increase. Their debt is an
Oh,
increase
sorry,
by
sorry,
1.2, right?
right. We're not talking about an increase. We're talking about the total. Yes. Thank you for reminding me again. I get lost in that. Let me see if it's in the presentation anywhere.
I mean,
I
it sounds
think
like,
you-
I mean, initially I'm thinking they're already having sharpened their pencils a little bit more because even Boylston has got them, again, they could be going, they could just take out things out of Boylston Elementary and, there would be no residual benefit to the Berlin's cost.
I think the one thing to keep in mind here, though, is there's a reason that we don't give a number.
Yes,
And that's that we want to understand the need
yeah.
and see the explanation and justification for the need in the same way that we request from the town departments. And yes, that gets a bit into the minutia, but Desi has confirmed that while the public at town meeting does not need to dive into the weeds, and the presentation should be an overview, the FinCom, the select board, the town administrator should be able to dive into detail with regard to the budget. So I would almost rather say, okay, so, you've cut this much, what does that mean? And what would further cuts mean? Because, so, for example, Scott Hawkins asked at the select board meeting last week, if we did a 0 increase for the town, what would that mean? And I know exactly where I would have to start cutting. So I think maybe a better understanding of literally what it means to get down to the money we have available, and then understanding what should be added back in. I don't know, that's sort of my reasoning behind never having recommended throwing out a number, because to me, then why are we even looking at the details of what they're doing and caring about what the needs are if we're just like, here's $500,000, go have fun? I mean, do you know what I mean? To me, if we're making the town departments explain in the level of detail that they do and justify, I just want to understand what the need is and what the impact would be if the money wasn't given. What the impact is on the students, what the impact is on the teachers, the teaching, the school, facilities. That's really what I want to understand, because that's what I look at when I make decisions on my budget recommendation on the town side. If I cut here, what does that mean? And what's the ripple effect? What's the long-term effect? What's the short-term effect?
I think that's exactly right.
Yes.
That is exactly
Yep.
right. What are further cuts going to mean to you? You've already come this far.
Right.
What are further cuts going to mean to you? At the same time, you can say, we need to have a reasonable percentage of increase overall in our budget. I can remember very clearly every year, we knew, or I had been informed by the finance committee, what kind of a percent that they were looking for. I mean, we knew that right up front. And did we always match that exactly? Probably not. But we knew that that was like the guiding light. That was the guiding star that we were to be thinking in terms of that. We knew that that's what the town needed. And if we exceeded it, we had better have a good reason for that.
Well, and in my mind, that number is 2.5%, because
Right.
we are limited by 2.5%.
Yes.
Yes, there is new growth for those fixed non-discretionary costs that go above
Yes.
2.5%.
Yeah.
But I also want to see where you're trying to offset it, because the instructions that I gave to the department heads this year was you do a 2% cost of living adjustment. So that's less than 2.5%.
Mhm.
And you level fund your expense budget number from the year before, not a level services budget, or even not a level services budget. It's, if you have to go up in one area, I want to see where you can cut in another area, and understanding that doesn't always pan out to a net zero.
Yeah.
But I want to see the effort being put in there to say, hey, well, we had 4,000 in that line item. I looked at the last 5 years, we only spent 3. So I'm comfortable putting 1,000 toward that other line item that's gone up so much.
I like that approach. Who's gonna convey that message?
So can we go to them and say, we requested you to stay within a 2.5%? You have been unable to do that. What can you do at a 3.5% if we're willing to budge to that 3.5%?
I don't think we gave them a number this year for a percentage. We have in previous years, but it has been so far off from what the percentage was that was needed. I did not necessarily feel it would be effective to reiterate the 2.5. Everybody knows that our budgets go up by 2.5%, and that's where our limitations
Yeah.
fall. But I like the second half for sure of what you said of, you know, if we could stretch it up and use some of our excess levy capacity to get it to 3.5, what does that look like for you?
So,
It's important to also convey that the percentage number is, we keep talking about 2.5%. Unfortunately, 2.5% doesn't represent the full number, right? It's 2.5% plus a
Plus
new
new growth.
growth, right? So in a lot of people, unfortunately, a lot of people, because the proposition 2.5 has 2.5 in its name and means various things, people immediately go as like saying you're limiting a budget or a line item to be no greater than 2.5%. And technically that's not true. I mean, if everything was divided over across, you could have every line item could go up greater than 2.5%, and you'd still be fine with the revenue you would have, because we could just figure out with the 200,000 added to the 377, what is that? What would that overall percentage? I mean, you can see that 75 is so 150. So you've got another 1.25 points. So technically each line item could go up, 3.75%, and you'd be within your revenue. I know I'm confusing people there, but
Yeah,
when
you
if
are.
you
yeah,
have the,
yeah,
you
we
have the
can't,
new
we can't do
revenue of
these numbers on
370,
the
right?
air.
You have the
Not at 10
new
o'clock at night,
revenue.
thanks.
But what I'm saying is you have the new revenue of 377. Well, actually, even then, it's probably not quite, because we have other revenue numbers in there. You can't use that because we've got revenue that's put into the budget for our, from the mitigation funds. We've got, the excise taxes and all that stuff. So it's a complicated. I would have to sit down
Right,
and
right,
do the
Scott,
math a
I
little
get it.
bit
It's
more.
not a, yeah, it's not a direct fall on to the residential real estate, because you have these other numbers, but they pale in comparison to the impact. And I want to go
Right.
back. I don't want to annoy people this time of night, but I want to go back. We're talking about a percent of, when we talk about like the 2.5 and our limitation, we don't know last year. Okay, so you can't apply a percent to a number you don't know. Right, so I come back to that point, and then how do you have a reasonable dialogue with the schools? And I hear you, Cliff, you see this movement, I see in yesterday's presentation, but it's a comparison to fiscal 25 to fiscal 26. Oh, there'll be staff cuts, but you don't know 25. I mean, and we don't even know end of year for 24. So
Let me play down. Oh,
But I liked what Kristen said earlier when she
me
said,
too.
what? Say that again. What
does
would
it
additional cut? Yeah, what does it mean?
mean if you had to
Yeah.
reduce by, say, you're at 3.5% right here? So that means another $330,000 in cuts. What does that mean?
What does that
And I
mean?
understand they may not be able to go into very specific positions because these are people and we have to be sensitive
Yes.
to that.
That was part of the conversation yesterday.
It was, and I
Right.
think that's a very valid
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
It
it
is.
is.
You know,
It
when
is.
we can more easily detail out our cuts, because it's like, I'm taking 15,000 from legal and from, you know, things that aren't people.
Yeah.
So, and you have to always remember school budgets are largely people.
Mhm.
But I think, to play devil's advocate to your point, Mary, we know there were issues last year, and I don't want to penalize the current administration or you know, what's going on there because of what happened last year. So I think in a sense, we might just have to not be able to use that as a comparison, and we may not ever have that
But I
information.
think we agree, we don't know. And we, and may never know because there's a lot of mysteries in there.
Right.
But I
And-
do like that approach.
So then can it be presented to them that we need you to do an additional X number of dollars of cuts before we can entertain the number, however you want to word it? Because I'm fully on board with Mary's opinion that we cannot go to the taxpayers of Berlin with another increase of 4, 5, 6, 7%. I mean, I stood up at the special town meeting last year. I don't know how many people actually listened to me. Some did. I did get some feedback from it. But it's been mentioned here in this meeting before, the percentage of senior citizens that live in this town. I mean, there are people in my age group that are on a fixed income, but we're still capable of finding other resources, getting that second or third job if we really, really have to. But the percentage of the seniors in this town that are already at or below the poverty level and struggling to hold on to what they have is what we really need to bring into the big picture. And they cannot take another 4 or 5 or even more percent hit and still live at the level that they are accustomed to.
Well, and Cliff and I just had this conversation on the way in to the
Mhm.
meeting where I said, one other thing we have to be cognizant or conscious of is the fact that Berlin has a far higher percentage of seniors than the state average. State average is about 25% of an average,
And we have more than 30,
and we have
right?
34.
Yeah.
So I think you do have to be sensitive to that. I mean, we did an aging in place and a demographic study for a reason, because we are trying to have people be able to stay in their homes. And so I am very sensitive to that as well. At the same time, we want to have a great education for our kids. There has to be a balance. And I think the challenge is there is no right or wrong answer specifically. There's just numbers and information and making some really tough decisions. So we can present that information to the school any way you would like. I am a little hard pressed to see how they could cut another $330,000, but I think the question can be asked, like I said, what does that mean? And I understand not wanting the FinCom, not necessarily wanting to go above that. And if that's the message that you want me to carry, that is the message I will carry. It's really up to you at this point. I've placed my recommendation in your hands, and when it comes to the policy piece of it, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is the part where I can only recommend. I mean, I would probably say you're a little safer at a 4, sorry, but even at a 5%, they still have to cut $100,000. So there's no perfect number here. I was just playing around with it.
No, and I think that that's fair. And ultimately, they're going to decide whether or not they can do that. And they're going to
Right.
present a number, and we have that number to deal with.
I mean, it'll be
Right.
our responsibility is obviously, calculating these numbers and being able to relate to the residents of the town what the financial impact is on their a tax bill. And the school's responsibility is to, basically indicate what the, ramifications would be at any of those particular levels. And as anything, the town meeting will decide what those numbers are and where do people want to try. Ideally it comes to, if you come to more of an agreement, the town typically has taken a lot of guidance from the finance committee, but if we could come to good ground that helps things through. Otherwise, obviously, it turns into more contentious, and then you don't know which side is going to be. You're just going to have a one set of winners and one set of losers on it, and that's the next alternative, right? So I think taking what we have is the number you rate with that 330, is that 3.5%? Is that the
Yes.
3.5% number? So I mean, we can provide them, here's whatever we want to choose for a thing, and just give them the general number that they need to stay within. So basically, the problem with that 3.5, we just can't say at 3.5%. I mean, we have to
Right.
articulate, here's our say we're using 3.5%. I'm just not saying that's what we're choosing. We have to say that provides this much new revenue. It would be higher than wanting for a levy if it was 3.5%. 2.5% is the target. That the town is looking at this X dollar amount. We've got Assabet at this X dollar amount, and then you have the remaining dollar amount. I did the calculation. If you were looking at 2.5%, the remaining dollar amount is $167,753. If you did 3.5%, the remaining dollar amount is $318,919. Because we'd have to show them what those numbers are. We just give them a guidance of 2.5, 3. That doesn't mean anything to them, right?
Right. So, and that we're very close. I think we're within $2, Scott.
So Scott, you're fundamentally saying our message is we're not talking about a hard dollar number. We're talking about the impact on the town, which translates, and these are all estimates, but this is what it translates to in a dollar amount.
Correct. In the end, we have to,
Yeah.
it's going to be a dollar amount. And
So-
you give them the guidance of where did this calculation come from? We have these other obligations, like Assabet, even though people will look and say it's 106, one of the things, they're at the minimum level contribution. So they can't go lower without violating the state law on that one. So, and we have the town, which obviously we could further try to refine, but that's what the town increase is. And then you have, here's what the dollar amount would be that's available for the schools. And that's dollar amount would include be operating and debt. And we aren't even talking capital.
Well, I'll remind you what Karen from Berlin FinCom reminded me yesterday is that we don't tell the school how to spend its money. We just tell them what we can afford to give them. Right. So as we
Her
think
side
about,
is easier because they're at the limit. Anything they want to go above, they have to go to ballot, which so their job's a little bit easier. We have to remember that.
And I also think while we don't tell them how to spend their money, I do believe it's within our purview to ask what it means to, to have an increase of that much and what it means to reduce the increase by a certain dollar amount.
Yeah, they would actually have a number to work from, and they can give, they will have to do the next hard part, which they probably have some general idea. Like you said, Kristen, this is not something that you're not oblivious to, and you've been working on these budgets. They have a general idea where, what areas that would impact them. Where would they have to make cuts to achieve that if they can't find some other savings that would avoid any type of negative cut. And the sooner we give it to them, if we give that to them tonight, obviously it's crunch time, but it gives them some days.
Make one point.
Can you come up? Scott, will you allow, or Mary, will you allow?
Yes, I will.
We'd
I will
like to
allow
hear
you.
from Ms. Stone from the select board.
The only thing that I caution you on is that they're still in teacher negotiations. So that is a
That's a very good point.
huge unknown number that you're looking for teacher salaries to come back and all the other requests that are being made. So you could say, they could say, here's the number, the increases could come back and, making it up, a 25% raise increase for the teachers. So how is that gonna impact it? So I just want to caution you that the budget negotiations are still the negotiations are still going on for the teachers. And I don't have an end date when they'll be done.
And
Yeah,
Al did
we
bring that up.
understand that, and I'm assuming that they are also having numbers internally that they are thinking about that they have to, is it are there negotiations for this next coming fiscal year, right? Their present contract expires at the
Starting
end of
July
FY
1.
25?
Yes,
Right. So I'm assuming part of their budget that we've gotten right now, I mean, they've been through this. I'm assuming that they have reserved some level of funding to have an idea what they will be going into the contract negotiations expecting to spend. Whether they have to spend more than that is another story. But I would not expect that they're going in with not having a single dollar padded into this budget for that.
I think that's correct, Scott.
I think that just means they'd have to do more layoffs, depending on how high the contracts come in.
But yes, if it goes
I mean,
well
honestly,
beyond,
that's the reality of it. If the budget is set prior to the contract being fully negotiated, they have to fit within that budget amount that's voted at the Berlin and Boylston town meetings. So
Chicken and an egg.
it is a tough one.
Yep.
And I also think, to Scott's point too, you need to strike that balance of being sensitive to the taxpayer, but also being sensitive to the fact that if you put in a number that is very, very low, you may not be able to come to consensus, and you might see what we had again last year, which is we'll just ask for, the full amount.
So let me go back to that point about the number. I was pressed yesterday, not by the district, but by the school committee to give a number. So I gave a number. In my opinion, not an official town number. I don't think the town ought to get a number, but this story needs to be told with the accompanying key facts. You went through it, Heidi went through it, what the population is in the town, what the public service or public safety requirements are, because we get the intersection of 495 and 290.
Yeah.
We get at our perimeter, we have the malls, we have the apartments on our perimeter. And the district mentioned the apartments are feeding into the district expensive needs in terms of students too. So that's, but we deal with that. So we have, for our size, we talked a few weeks ago about the call volume for public safety here, right? For our size,
It's surprising.
these are public services that we need to supply. And this is part of the picture that especially with the administration school district being new to the area, these are things that may not be readily apparent. And that's what I think, that's the communication that needs to be made to the district and to the public about where we sit with putting together a budget for next year.
Since you are the purveyor of the message.
I am, but I would need a vote from the FinCom before I would be comfortable moving forward.
I want to suggest that the message not include a number, but include this analysis and then the underlying rationale. And I think it's of interest. I had that question yesterday. Can we look at where's your budget? Can we look at it? And it's like, well, there it is. It's on the website. But I think that delivering that with the factors that go into our discussion tonight, I think those are the things. I don't think the district needs a number. They need a snapshot of where we sit.
Okay.
And so you've done a great job, Kristen, with all of this and getting us to this point. And we're agonizing now. Do you give a number? Do you not? How do you do this? And I think it's this is what we're facing. It's nothing's hidden here. It's an honest assessment, and we do have long-term residents that really, as much as they support public education, it's a question of really tough choices in there.
financial situation, fixed income financial situation.
We,
Was that a
either way, I
motion?
mean, we have to give them a
No,
number.
no, I don't know that we
Wait,
need a motion
what-
here. Do we, Cliff? Do we need a
Well,
motion?
well, what type
Not the
of number are we?
parliamentarian, as the chair.
Sorry, Scott, I
Well-
didn't hear you. I apologize.
Well, we have to give them a number no matter what. I mean, our analysis here is a numbers. So, I mean, are you saying that we just provide them the numbers of like what the scratch pad at the bottom of the spreadsheet is? Of these are the choices that depending on where you fall, this is what you're going to impact the taxpayer?
Yes,
And provide them all those choices? Is that the number or numbers that you were trying to provide them?
Or
Or
are
a
you talking about
number
that box right there?
or a number that the finance committee itself is zeroing in on to, that would be something we would be looking to recommend? I think those are your
well,
two
okay, Scott.
choices.
So we could vote that we wouldn't recommend what we saw yesterday. We could take
Okay,
that.
yes, we could,
wished.
we could definitely take a vote of, right, the numbers at the present would be a 5.5%, we'll call it 5.5, it was almost exactly. That we could have a motion and vote that we would not recommend that, or that would be the motion, I would say. We could start by that. Do we want to start whittling it down that way?
No. No, I would just take the impact of what was discussed yesterday for the Berlin assessment. What that impact means in this draft budget analysis and say we wouldn't recommend it.
So can we clarify what, because I mean, if all these numbers were shared with me, I would not be able to decipher it. So are we looking to just share that box right there
Well, and
that
that's
you
my
just
question.
highlighted?
I mean, I could say at 3.5% tax increase, that is what this means. This means that another $330,000 would need to be cut from the budget.
What kind
That
of-
means we have to end the meeting.
That's right. There's laptops dying. That means we're done. No, well, I don't know if, see, I can write up something, but I can't have you comment on it outside of.
No, I
a meeting.
understand.
So the only other option would be a vote that I could try to encapsulate, or Scott could try to write some, or could encapsulate it and share it with me, and we could work on it together. As the chair, I don't know how you want to move forward.
You want the three of us to leave it in your hands to finalize something?
I am happy to do so. I
Almost
think I need a
agree with
little
you.
bit more direction, though. I mean, are we going with 3.5% and what that works out, to?
I think there's a two-pronged thing here. I think that one, it's clear from our discussion tonight that the presentation that they reviewed yesterday wouldn't satisfy the finance committee,
Okay,
correct?
You know,
There.
yes.
I think that's fair.
And the second thing is that using that box as an illustration, if we were to contemplate a 3.5% increase plus growth, that this is what the numbers look like, so that they can see what the challenge is. And third, what would a $300,000 additional cut to your budget, what would that effect be on your schools?
And obviously, like you said, Kristen, they can't say, oh, that means Mrs. Smith goes and Mr. Jones,
No, they won't be saying.
but what,
Yeah,
because again, I know we're not supposed to go to last year, but last year when we ended up with that fiasco, it was just, even people not knowing exactly what the cuts would be. It was like, well, this is going to disappear and that's going to, well, it's like, what exactly would be disappearing? Don't just come back and almost like create a fear or an unknown. Let us know that, well, this particular program or this particular grade, or will sacrifice an instructor or a teacher, or the program itself
Right.
would get cut.
Yes, we could ask for them to come back and give us indication of what the cuts are and not let this turn into a speculation and then let the social media take over and turn
Right.
this into a mess. Social media will still take off and turn this into a mess. Anybody wants to read it, it's like, if you want real information, do not go there, but people will still do that. But
So,
right
yeah,
now, right now, we
Scott,
just-
I think that we and the district, the teachers, the students would be well served by some clarity in this.
yes.
Okay,
Okay, so how about this? Let me kick off a motion.
Okay.
Can you, did something die or that? Can you bring up that spreadsheet, at the bottom of that spreadsheet, show it for me, please? Like,
Kristen needs power, she needs power for it, she's,
Oh.
she's,
The
We
meeting's
are-
crashing.
the meeting is
Hold on.
crashing. Is there a cord that I can get?
yeah, it's in I can grab my cord in my office. Do you want to start on the motion? And
Sure,
I'll run,
sure.
grab it.
Do you have a deal?
Yeah.
Give it up.
Yeah, $20.
Earlier. I am not paying you.
Wow. It's on tape.
Yeah, my budget.
Yeah.
I think we have to be careful when we're throwing around either dollar amounts or percentages, because a percentage to me on my budget is a big difference than it would be for the school.
Yes.
So that's the only thing is I think we need to clarify is that a 3.5% overall increase to the taxpayers is a little bit different than them saying they can only go up 3.5%. You know what I mean?
I
Because
do understand.
the dollar amounts are totally different.
Yes.
Exactly, that's it's gotta be clear that if we use a 3.5% increase to the levy, which results in these numbers, and that's that little box
Right.
that is on that spreadsheet, which gives you dollar amounts and where we stand. So by
So
general,
are you gonna give us the language of the motion, Scott?
I will give you the language of the motion and we'll debate on that language here, but please bear with me.
Okay,
the
because I'm gonna have
motion
to
is-
type it.
Okay,
So,
I will go,
one sentence at a time.
yeah,
Later.
the
Thank you.
motion
Wow.
is
Okay.
I
the
was putting-
present
Mine's more.
BBRSD.
Are you
operating-
dictating to me already?
Scott, can you go a little louder for this particular bit?
Okay. The present budget provided by BBRSD for operating assessment and debt is
That's
not-
operating assessments and debt. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
correct,
Okay.
is not recommended by the Berlin Finance Committee. We kindly ask that you stay within a target budget that does not increase the
You slow
taxpayer
down,
levy.
slow down, slow down. We kindly ask that you remain within,
A target budget that does not increase.
The levy greater than 3.5%.
We want YouTube, so we're gonna need to repeat this, just so you know.
I'm sorry.
We
that's the
lost
whole thing,
YouTube.
Scott?
Okay.
Well, we need to read it off
It was
that
still
box.
recording on
Of course
I-
they do.
So, and actually, Scott, you're not in the room, but with Kristen's power going down on the computer, we dropped YouTube. She's bringing it back up. So we need to repeat this anyway for the public meeting.
Okay, well,
But-
Sorry
but-
about
Hopefully
but
we'll-
maybe,
Cliff
Hold
will
on
bring
just
it
a
back to
sec, she's
me.
looking back out.
she's looking it up and maybe it can be repeated by Cliff reading it back and you can
That's perfect.
confirm, right?
right, and the last piece is, I'm not sure how we put this into words, but maybe we don't have to put it exactly into words, but we have to figure out how that box.
It says it's still live streaming on YouTube, even though my computer went down. So can you
Okay,
check on
good.
your phone? Because I went to reconnect and it says
You're
stop
connected?
live stream, which I don't want to do. So maybe we didn't go down even though my computer
Well,
died.
Scott, do you want me to read back what I have?
We didn't lose Scott. Does that?
No, I'm still here.
He's on Zoom.
Yeah, just
Scott,
a
I
moment.
couldn't hear
Cliff.
your answer.
Oh, no, don't read back yet. Wait until.
Right, I'll read it back. The motion is that the presentation provided by the school district, I'm going to abbreviate here briefly.
BBRSD.
BBRSD,
Boylston Regional School, yeah.
yeah,
March 4.
on March 4th. That's what I
Yeah.
was looking for. For operating assessments and debt is not recommended by the Finance Committee. We
Right,
kindly
Berlin.
ask that BBRSD remain within a target budget that does not increase the levy by 3.5%,
Yeah, greater than 3.5%.
greater than 5%.
Say, do we want to put debt in the first part of that motion or put it in the second? So that the operating assessment and debt do not increase, but I think the debt is the debt is the debt. It's the operating assessment that we're asking them to look at.
Right,
So
we
the
can
first part of the
say,
motion spoke about operating assessment
Assessment
and
and debt.
debt. Could we take the debt out of the first part, put it in the second part where you say the operating assessment and debt do not exceed that? Can we just shift
That
the
would be-
language a bit?
yes, that's fine.
Oh, great.
So I'm looking over your shoulder, so
Assessment is not recommended. Finance Committee kindly ask that you remain within a target budget for both operation and debt.
yes.
That does not increase the levy greater than 3.5%.
Right.
Is that
And
right,
then-
Scott?
Yes, and then we still
Increase
have
the
more to
levy
add
more,
to
yeah.
that. So we need the bottom part of that spreadsheet when Kristen is ready. No pressure.
I am ready. I will share. I just kind of cut and paste this quickly into a Word document. I'll share it so you can see
There
it.
you go.
I missed the very first sentence, but I can get that from you after.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Now we can just read this as is. A 3.5% levy increase plus new growth. Increases available funds by $729,081,
By what?
of which
729.81.
246,195 go to the town. 163,965 to Assabet. Leaving. Well, what's the difference there?
Oh,
Just a
yeah,
moment.
gotta
I
do
need
that
to
math.
do the
Hold on.
math. Leaving, let's see
Just the
there.
reverse, right?
648, 974, subtract 3. Oops,
318.
919.
Well, I have 921, but we can go with yours.
Okay, no, that could be fine. You can do 921. I don't care. Yeah, we do 921.
Okay,
I may be-
I may be off. I'm fine
Well, let
with
me
using.
just see here. I'll just do the math here. 648 974 subtract 330,053, it's 318,921. You are correct.
You need to what?
318,921.
Leaving $318,921 for the BBRSD
Increase.
increase. And you can put in parentheses, not including capital.
Not including debt.
Capital.
Really?
Capital, I'm
Capital.
There you go.
And then basically, I think that's basically it.
okay.
Yeah,
That-
if we were to
that-
contribute a 3.5% tax increase, this would look like this box, and that would require 330, or it would require a $330,000 reduction.
I'm not getting all of that.
You can copy Kristen's.
Kristen's captioning.
Oh, yeah, I
pretty
got it.
well.
I got
She's
it.
got it pretty well.
Just
I'm
send
a
it to
fast typer. I will send it to you.
She could be a court stenographer.
I could. Scott can do the numbers and I'll type. There we go. We're good.
So am I still speaking or what?
As shown in this chart. Yes, Scott,
Yeah.
sorry.
Okay,
Shown in this chart.
chart. As shown in this chart, this would require another $330,053 of cuts or reductions. Don't say cuts and reductions.
Operating budget reductions, because we can't cut debt.
Right.
That's right.
All
I
right.
do like Cliff's comment, if we could work it in somehow about, what that means for the district.
Yeah. Could you provide an analysis of what this impact would be on BBRSD?
Does that comment go in the motion or separately?
I think
Probably.
this is the motion, right? I think it would be the whole. Do we want this motion as being what we're asking them?
Well,
What we're standing, what we're
What
Not
we're directing
recommending.
Kristen to do.
I think we're doing
Yeah.
two things. The first would be the motion and then it would be writing it out. No?
Well,
Just totally lost you on that one.
we
So,
can have this
I-
as, this is like the motion, and then I guess Kristen and I can work with the explanation.
Presentation.
Oh, okay.
so I think the motion is the first sentence and the rest of it is an explanation of vote.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so the vote is the first
Thank you,
sentence.
Mary.
And we
Okay.
do want to clarify in that sentence that it is not the debt in the first part. It's so Kristen,
Presentation
yeah.
provided by
Take our-
BBRSD on March 4th for operating assessments is not recommended by the finance committee.
So
And there's no debt mentioned there.
yes. Yeah,
What's the
Cliff's
first
got, the
sentence?
first sentence is,
The presentation provided by BBRSD on March 4th for operating assessments is not recommended by the finance committee.
You say the Berlin Finance Committee.
Okay. That's the statement.
That's the
Yeah.
motion.
That's the motion. And then the other stuff is the explication.
Right. So before we move forward with writing it out, we should make sure everybody's on the same page and perhaps take the vote motion.
Yeah, and in that, we add the debt back into the second sentence so that they remain within a target operating budget and operating debt budget that does not increase, And later on, we said, the capital piece is off, not part of this.
Yes, I did see you type that somewhere in parentheses.
Not
Yep,
including
not
capital,
including
Cindy.
capital, yeah.
Yep, down here.
Yeah. So. As a motion for a vote, I think really the only thing is that first sentence. Does that seem right?
That makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
And just put in there where you have town, can you say town of Berlin? And we probably should.
Town to Berlin
have
Finance
town
Committee.
of-
No,
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 town of
second
Berlin.
paragraph.
And then,
Okay.
correct, you got that right. And then we're Assabet, we should put the whole name of Assabet Valley
Aspet Valley
Oh,
Regional Technical High School.
Regional Technical, yes. They should get, we all
Regional,
should get our
Regional
proper
Technical High
names
School.
here.
No, I got that wrong in the minutes on another meeting.
you want me to write out BBRSD too?
Educational.
No,
I don't see
No,
that.
No, I think
Okay.
BBRSD is fine. We all are well with that one. We just don't have, I don't know what it calls AVRT.
just call it AV or the Valley.
There you go. And Kristen, maybe, first paragraph, second sentence, make a paragraph break. And, you could maybe put in parentheses, vote of FinCom.
After this first sentence, you mean?
Yeah. Yep, March 5th. I'm jumping ahead of the motion, but I think that's your message, yeah. Summing up the discussion here. Scott, you want to make that
Yeah.
motion?
Okay. So the motion is the presentation provided by BBRSD on March 4th for operating assessments is not recommended by the Berlin Finance Committee. We kindly
Seconded.
ask, okay, yeah. We have a second? All right,
I just second.
any other discussion on this motion?
I think maybe you want to insert the word operating assessments to Berlin, to the town of Berlin.
Sure, that probably makes, yeah, we should clarify that.
That,
Yep,
Okay, so I will. We want to table that motion and I'll do a new motion.
can we take the vote?
No, we
Well, let me
didn't
just
vote
do the
on
new motion
on
for
the
the,
first one.
after they modified the title. Okay,
I think that was a discussion of what was the motion and. we
Okay,
wanted
that's
to amend
fine.
the motion.
All right.
We've amended the motion.
okay, we've amended the motion.
You want to second that again?
Oh, I'll second it again.
There you go.
Okay.
And
Do we have some more discussion we want on this? I think we're
no, Scott.
all set.
Yeah.
All right, so roll call, Scott, aye.
Very aye.
IDI.
Cliff eye.
Okay, motion passes 4-0.
Sorry, all I meant was before we go into the rest of it, could we take the vote? Not that you need to stop it, just take the vote. I didn't mean it like that.
No,
I know it's very late there. Do we, I mean, this is like, we've covered the hard part here today.
Yeah.
Do we want to adjourn or can we just tack this stuff next week? Would that be fine?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Oh, right,
if,
I don't think we're in a place to, even the simple votes, we're not there.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Heidi has to go to work tomorrow morning.
Yeah, okay, so.
And I
the
think
motion
getting
to
that
adjourn-
information out to them sooner rather than later is better and not worrying so much about the wording. I mean, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I think this is actually in pretty good shape to go.
I
Unless you
agree.
want to make some changes to it.
I say faster.
Scott, what's your feeling on that?
I think it's in good shape and I am doing a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I second that.
All right, all those in favor? Aye,
I.
Aye.
we're adjourned.
Thank you, Scott.
Let me close
Thank
out the
you.
meeting.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, thank you. I know I kept